Needed one. I was telling him on the way up that he needed one.
Is that going to tell you like what temperature we all are, or like what is that? Distance or distance?
Well, you're probably wondering what's the appropriate distance in the HRC meeting. It's 11 foot 2 inches and an 8.
We're socially spaced distance.
Yeah, that's it.
I'll call the meeting to order, please. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Historic Resources Commission of the City of Albany.
It doesn't matter.
We also welcome people viewing on YouTube. This is it. I am the chair of the commission, John Myers. In attendance this evening, we have Commissioner McEnany, Commissioner Pinckney, Commissioner Kaplan. I do declare we have a quorum with 4 members present. Aaron Glennon from the Planning Office, Deputy Director, is representing us, as well as Christopher Wellman. You know those senior moments. Jeff can understand that. Christopher Loam, Senior Planner, our Preservation Planner for the Planning Office, and Jason Thomas is Legal Counsel representing us.
Jason who? I didn't get Thomas? Yeah.
On the agenda this evening, we have a public hearing agenda for one item, and we also have a public workshop for another rather large item to discuss. So the first item on the agenda is, also I forgot to mention, if anyone wishes to make a comment, we just request that the comment be on the topics that are under the purview of the Historic Resources Commission, and that they be limited to 3 minutes in duration in the interest of everyone's time. Again, I will call the first item. It's 469 South Pearl Street. And this is one in the South End, Groesbeckville Historic District. They're seeking a certificate of appropriateness to rehabilitate the exterior of the structure. And Commissioner Pinckney and myself performed a site inspection as a result of the discussions from our previous meeting when we discussed the project, and that site inspection report is in the packet for you to look at and consider. So I would just invite the applicant to come up and re-represent the project.
Good evening, everyone.
What's up, sir? Stefan.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you. Keith.
I think the items that came out of our last meeting, the subject matter of the renovation and the repair and restoration of the exterior building, there were several items that were kind of deferred until we had an opportunity to take a site visit and take a look. One of them was the chimneys on the building. There are 4 chimneys. There also was discussion about the cornice and how that would be developed by removing the existing built-in gutter and installing a hung gutter external to the cornice assembly. And also we looked at or considered the wooden hoods or pediments over selected windows and doors. The proposal was to remove those, and because of their advanced state of deterioration, But the result of our review in the field indicated that there were enough of the units in good condition on the north elevation of the building that, some could be saved. So that is an item for discussion. I guess I'm not going to preempt anything you want to say, so please.
No, I was fine, but yeah, we talked about removing 3 of the fair conditioned pediments that are over on the north side, removing those and replacing or installing those. Oh, that's a nice. I like that. See that before. Installing it to the main front elevation, just to make the front elevation the appearance from the street that's on South Pro and give the best presentation of the building. So we essentially go back to stone lentils on the north side and salvage what we could of the wood pediments to go on the front facade.
Yeah, consolidate them to the front
Correct.
street
To the 3 bays, so that, the pediment over the door, which we had always intended to preserve, and then the other 5 windows in that elevation. If, there are enough parts and pieces available to do that, restore the pediments to all 5 windows so that elevation is a composition that makes sense and it matches what's going on with the door pediment as well.
And the chimneys are in pretty poor shape.
Yeah.
They're huge. They, look like they're about ready to fall down. And a lot has a couple of them have podging on it, which from a repair point of view it's kind of lousy dealing with that.
It's not really a repair, it's kind of a patch and hope it stays up.
Yeah.
So so those, not knowing what the underlying condition beneath the parging is, it's hard to make that determination. But also one of the chimneys on the north elevation had been cut down considerably in height. There was only one chimney that, even on the north elevation, that looked like it was its original height and configuration, but it was deteriorated as well. And since they're non-functional in terms of the building, and their condition is such that it would be a monumental job to basically rebuild them, Lee and I both felt that they certainly, could come down and the roofing on the mansard be patched in where they used to pass by it and engage with it, so that the mansard roof is restored around all of its exposed surfaces, and everything else is repaired where the chimneys used to be. But again, we didn't state that in our report because we wanted to make sure that the commission had an opportunity to discuss that particular recommendation. The other discovery we made, if you go back to the report on the south elevation of the building, the cornice is already being supported by outriggers off of window sills. So it's apparent that the cornice really needs a substantial reconstruction. Plus, quite a bit of it is covered with sheet metal flashings, so it's not really, there's no real exact understanding of what that cornice looked like. And the thought was that you take the measurement of a projection of the cornice off the face of the building and use that as the starting point for the nose of the new gutter that would be hung off of it, and you work backwards and reconstruct the amount of cornice that would be necessary to allow the gutter to be out of that original exposure, or original projection off the face of the building wall. So that, and then, obviously reconfigure it so you eliminated the built-in gutter feature and sloped it properly to flow into the new K gutter that would go on the face of it.
I didn't pick up from the notes that, I probably read carefully, well, anyway, I didn't pick up that the overall projection of the cornice is intended to, the overall projection now would match that what was original, while includes a shorter cornice, but including the 4 inches or whatever that might be for the gutter.
Correct.
Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah, we wanted to preserve the overhang that the cornice presents as it originally was, and most of it looks right now. But then just move, since there's a lot of reconstruction of the cornice anyhow, you can reconstruct it shorter so that when you hang a gutter on it, you're not projecting any further than the original cornice projected. I think there was general agreement, during our discussion that that was a feasible approach.
You did a nice field report. It was very helpful. It is the northeast chimney that's the most intact.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're very important elements to the building, and that said, perhaps we could ask for, when I assume you're working on a lift, or scaffold? It doesn't really matter. When you get up there, if you can get some really good dimensions of what's there, so that submit it to the city, have it in the files, and so that in the future, should anyone have the opportunity to reconstruct the chimneys, they know what to do.
Okay,
So
absolutely.
just some profiles and dimensions, I think would be great.
I think good documentation of them so that the record shows what had been there. And that one, certainly the northeast one, is certainly the most intact.
It's a pretty good idea.
Who's?
You.
Mine? Thank you.
Well, I remember, in previous meetings when people wanna rip the interiors out. Although we don't deal with interior, we always tell them, photograph it. Even when the buildings be demolished, photograph it, document it. So this is just in case somebody, maybe Stefano wants to.
Can't wait to rebuild those poor
some chimneys.
That depends on what Mr. Simmons does.
But
That depends on what you guys tell me.
I think it's a good project. It's worthy of us approval.
Such a prominent building in that neighborhood that it's just been abandoned now. There's been a lot of vagrant activities in the past, and so it'd be good to see his family and
Probably 20
folks
years.
inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who built the building again? It's on the plaque.
William Moore, the Iceman.
William Moore, yeah,
Or
Moore, M-O.
And the blue form was contained in the packet. Indicates one of the earliest in 1854 occupant of the building.
He owned so 1854, he owned a house on the corner of Whitehall, and that was 1870, this was listed. Yeah, you just didn't move in for a little while.
We didn't really speak of, I don't think, and I don't know, did you, Ed, when you were on the site visit, of the stoop and railings and all of that? We got focused on the larger building. Can you zoom, Chris, are you, you are, can you zoom into that?
Do you want a photo or the?
A photo, please. I'll try to pull it up here too.
If the proposed work on the stoop is just to reset level existing French stairs, scrape and repaint, and then reinstall the metal railing that's there.
Okay. That's not what the drawing shows, right?
Pretty sure we have a note on that in the drawing.
Item
The
D,
elevations, you go to the front elevation.
item D on A201.
A201?
Item D on the left side under proposed new exterior.
That's on the north elevation?
East
That would be on
elevation.
the
No,
front
that's
elevation, which is the east.
on the east elevation?
Yep.
So the stair and the stoop that I've got showing on the south and the north, that's a different one?
That's the side entrance.
That's just a
That's
side,
facing south, yeah.
that's a side, okay.
That little add-on?
Yep.
On the opposite side is that extension that you see. So there's an entrance in the front and one on the other side and one in the back. That one on the left, down below, with the scaffolding on top.
It's interesting, there's no indication of any windows or ventilation or anything on the basement level, which tells me there's no real basement.
There's a small
Small
basement.
Yeah,
Very
scroll
small
type.
basement.
Yeah.
It's under the original footprint of the house, which is, we're looking at this front elevation, yep. Where you have the 3 bays, that's the original house, and then at some point, there was an addition to the right. So the basement is only under that small footprint.
Stone basement inside, but a brick veneer in the front?
Yep.
Huh. Unusual.
Well, are there any other items? You wish to address?
That's the railing, it's the railing and steps. I don't know whether the steps are drawn the way it is.
So I'm on,
Marilyn, can you tell us what page you're on?
yeah, I'm on A202.
Yeah, that's the front stairs protruding off the front of the house.
Which we were just looking at.
Yeah, so, yep, she's looking at the top drawing.
Okay.
Page on the left.
So the photo of that entrance is what we were just looking at or not?
Correct, yes.
It is.
So it appears here that the stairs are semicircular, or that you can go up the stairs in all directions. That's the way that's drawn. But in actuality, you have some cheek walls.
There's not any real cheek walls, but it's definitely not circular though.
Okay.
Is-
We're looking at it right now.
Is that photo, where it says front elevation?
Yep.
Mhm.
The same as this stair?
Yes, that's the same
Okay.
stair.
So there's a conflict between, I think,
Okay.
what's shown here and the photograph.
Are they blocks, or is each step a block of stone?
Each step is a block of stone.
So those lines there are probably mortar joints. Actually, it looks like 3 steps going up from the side.
Can you zoom into the,
Let me see if I can pull up another.
to the photo again?
The photo?
And the photo's most telling.
Can you zoom?
Well, it has vegetation on either side. But it does look like just a
It doesn't, it
rectangular,
looks like it's
rectangular stair.
a tread and a block and one extant rail on the right.
Mhm.
That's probably
It attaches
metal
here,
of some sort.
here,
It's a
and
metal
then
railing,
here.
Is it an early metal railing or a later one?
I wouldn't.
Probably later.
Yeah.
The way it's
It
drawn,
looks
it's
later.
Is it brownstone, those stones?
Sorry, what was that?
That's brownstone, the two big
Correct.
flat stones?
It's a brownstone, whether it's actually brownstone, I couldn't say that, but yes.
It was brownstone, it was 1851, I think they'd be in a lot worse shape than they are, so.
Yeah, it's not real brown.
Right,
It's much harder.
yeah.
Those may even be a colored precast concrete that replaced the original. And you can see the eroded sill for the entry doors is brownstone. But I think, imitating basically the landing and the one tread, the two risers up to the sill at the entry door seems
So the
appropriate.
drawing seems to show 4 risers. Whether,
Just 3 right?
yeah, I'm sorry, the A2, that's the one. So I think I'd like us to kind of take another look at the treatment of the main entrance, but there's so much.
There's 3 risers now.
Yeah, but how many do you see in the, no, I count that. There's 1, 2, 3.
And then 3
And then
in the
at the door.
picture. Why?
And then there's a landing,
And then there's
an
a landing.
additional riser
Okay.
into the actual product. Just a step up.
But I don't think we're planning any work on that, because this is gonna be a modern house now, and the driveway and the back door is gonna be the main entrance. And if you're standing on Pearl Street, it's 15 steps up, no one's ever gonna come up that staircase when they can park in the back. So we weren't planning on doing anything with that front.
Well, what I hope we could do is to approve the project otherwise as proposed, but get additional information, kind of better documentation. And there is a note H that doesn't show up again on the notes here. So it's tabbed H, but it's not noted. So it would just be good to know more about the existing conditions of the dredge risers and the landing at that entrance and at the east, and also of the railing and what's there and what is proposed. But I don't think that's, in my opinion, it would be, we could make a motion to accept the project with the conditions with the recommendations that you all have from the site visit, and then with the condition that the existing conditions and the treatment of the entrance be reviewed.
Second.
I think you might want to make it a little cleaner, just.
That's why I don't even want to do an emotion with you. I shouldn't say it like that, but he's doing it the right way.
He's doing it.
Let's try a motion to approve with the condition. Or to approve the certificate of appropriateness, right?
Yeah, so it's a motion to approve the project as proposed with the following conditions. One is that the 4 chimneys that the northeast chimney will be documented and measured and documented and photographed prior to the demolition, and that information will be provided to planning staff for the file. The second recommendation will be that the rebuilding of the built-in gutters as proposed is accepted with the understanding that the outermost point of the rebuilt built-in gutter will align, the horizontal distance of the built-in gutter will be reduced such that the outermost point of the existing built-in gutter matches the outermost point of the new hung gutter plus the reduced width of the built-in gutter. Is that detailed enough? Did you get that? And the third is that the additional information be provided on the existing conditions of the east elevation entrance.
Make an amendment. That's what you call it?
No, we have to do something
Well,
first.
Well, so the motion's not finished being offered, so it would either need a second or you could deliberate whatever that is right now and add it to the motion.
Okay, let's
Yeah,
deliberate.
let's deliberate, because you want to add the condition on the pediments over the windows.
Well, that's what I was gonna mention to her, about the pediments.
Okay, so that's number 4, go.
That the pediments, the salvageable pediments from the north elevation be consolidated to the east elevation to complete the front, the wood pediments over the windows.
So the 5 windows in that original elevation would have pediments.
All right, do we have a second?
Second,
Perfect. And
Any further discussion? Say no.
Just on the motion.
voting time?
All those in favor of the motion?
aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried.
Awesome.
Bye.
Great. Good work, have fun.
See you later.
Thank you.
Use us.
I'll stop by when we.
Look forward to the project.
Yeah, good luck with everything. I'll stop by and check out. They said the harder you work, the less we're gonna need luck. Appreciate you. Thank you. Take care. Thank you, guys.
There we go.
Wonder what the story is. Very much.
See you. Next one. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's one.
Thank you.
It's, the railing is entirely pineapples all
I was
the way. Oh, one street.
I was just looking
On the east side, not this.
I was
one.
that's what I was
This,
I'm fully making.
other one, I went all the way down.
Yeah.
It's very gracious. I've never seen someone making this record.
Ice maker or ice something, yeah.
Something that size across there. On each at the warehouse.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the public workshop discussion of the, let's see,
Dealer.
it's in the South End Groesbeckville Historic District, and it's the South Albany Scattered Sites Redevelopment Project, the owner being the Albany County Land Bank. So, we have numerous COAs at play here with, a number of the buildings, the 62 buildings.
62
Yeah,
buildings,
62
63
buildings.
sites?
22 DPRs, and then, or 21 DPRs, and then 27 COAs, so.
So administratively, the goal is we're gonna go through them one COA at a time, and then, because it's a workshop and we're not rendering anything, we'll try not to go back. You'll also see similar building design that you can build as we go.
Would you remind us of kind of the status overall, kind of in terms of approvals in the city and where things are?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of do my little summary of it. So The South End Scatter Site redevelopment project is present for their workshop session. The applicant proposes construction of roughly 60 residential and mixed-use structures on vacant lots around the South End. The structures vary in size from 2-story row houses to larger scale apartments and commercial structures. So at this time, it's still in the process of seeking planning board approval for their DPR reviews. And then planning staff's recommendation is, as the project stands, it's appropriate for a concept review and workshop at this time, pending plan revisions, edits, and clarifications requested by staff and the HRC. Following this workshop, planning staff recommends that they be put on the November agenda as a hearing item so that you all may render action.
So for the DPRs, where are you in that process?
So the DPR or development plan review, there's 22 development plan review applications. The majority of those are minor development plan reviews, so they're going through the administrative process. Some of the larger structures, the multi-use buildings, there's four of them are going for major development plan review. They have been circulated for review by other city departments. I believe we have provided a first round of comments to the design group. We're waiting on some updated site plans and other information, as well as the stormwater report for the water department. We're hoping to have that back to the planning board either November or December for them, depending on when we get all the documents and can circulate those again. The seeker, the state environmental review process has been completed. We did receive all the documents for that. So right now it's just kind of between planning board and for those major development plan reviews, and then other department comments for the minor development plan reviews, and then the certificates of appropriateness.
And they're always through all departments, they're kind of traveling individually as we've got them here?
Yes, so the package has been circulated to, all 22 applications have gone to all of the city departments that comment on development projects.
And I believe the reason why we have 27 COAs and 22 DPRs, because some DPRs cover multiple blocks of buildings, and the COAs are breaking each sort of building block individually. So let's say one DPR has 2 buildings, the COAs does one, then the other, like a 5-block, 3-block, and they're next to each other. There's sometimes there's space in between the 2 DPRs because of the setbacks between existing buildings, so you'll see.
Explain, we just did development plan, the COA.
Is a certificate of appropriateness.
Because the public is listening to this, not everybody knows what initials are.
And so for the sake of the presentation, to kind of help the commission, I broke it up similarly how they presented it. They'll be primarily by their block buildings, so it'll be kind of easier to picture the streetscape.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to kind of start off, so we met here, was it a couple months ago? I forget.
You were here in
You were gonna get to drive home and it was light.
July? June, July?
Yeah, one of those months.
One of the months.
Yeah, because we were at site plan review last month or 2. With here, but
Yeah.
site plan review. And one of the things that we sort of worked on from our last discussion was simplifying the buildings. That was the main thing that if you guys remember, the buildings are relatively narrow, and in some cases 2 stories, and in other cases 3 stories. And at one point we did have bump outs like a bay, so there was a reason for there to be sort of a material change to kind of define these bump outs. But then as the project progressed, then we had to simplify the building a little bit more and costs and everything was coming into play, we sort of simplified those facades, but then kept those material changes to kind of show those previous elements. But after our meeting last time with the HRC, there was an emphasis on simplifying those buildings, getting them to a much more sort of cohesive and less materials per building structure, since each structure wants to be sort of its independent building. The other thing was there was one orange, and Aaron's not here, I think it was Aaron last time, which really popped out as a out of place sort of element. So we went ahead and kind of toned those colors down, kept that material there, but as we'll go through the project, we'll see that what we've done is sort of try to simplify the building, get it a little bit more materially uniform. So,
how do you think you did in simplifying?
I think, well, we definitely did simplify it by minimizing those materials. And there were some instances where we had color accents that kind of threw off a little bit the elevations and where we had stoops. So we made those the same color so that there's not much of a difference. And I think from a sort of pedestrian point of view, you'll see a building and you'll see that building similar to what you see now. You see one building that's slab siding pretty much throughout, or if it's something else, it's that one individual material. So we can go through these.
What did we, can you remind us what HR, what was discussed at the last meeting? Our opinions?
So at the last meeting, let's see, we did, there was kind of more of like a broad stroke overview of the project as a whole. It was another concept review meeting. There was some discussion of where previously there had been projections such as bays and Oriels on the front elevations. And I think in the first iteration, those projections on the fronts of the buildings were a different material. There was a change in material. And so in some cases where that had been removed for financial purposes, the change in material had been retained on the proposals. I think the feedback that was given to Eduardo was to maybe soften that a little bit and take those out because it was making the front elevations very busy. And then again, some of the elements of the colors and the changes kind of in materials was a bit much in some cases. I know that Aaron Tobin, who's on here this evening, had brought up kind of that orange, what had been kind of like a water table on some of the buildings under the front windows. They had been kind of a drastic change in the colors, and had recommended that be, toned back a little bit.
Could be a nod to Halloween, right?
The black and orange one.
The black and orange one, yes. I believe the Maryland Tablet had asked for some additional details on the stoops and the railings. There had been discussion also of kind of trash storage and mitigating that, where that would be housed and, where it would be located for this project. That is a further discussion that we
Was
did
that
have to
able to
have.
be
Well,
addressed?
I don't, so what we are doing at the moment is working with site plan review to see because there's things that we can, whatever you propose something, but that's in the right of way. So then it becomes like an issue. So I think what we're thinking is, we're trying to focus on the buildings with the HRC and then with the planning board, trying to see and work with them on, because the trash it's really something that's inherent to the zoning, to the site with all the attached homes. So where we can, we're trying to see if we can squeeze them on the sides of the buildings. Otherwise, it's creating something in the right of way that's not a stoop or a building, so then you're creating another problem. So what, so I think that's a planning board discussion that we're gonna be working with. We have proposed with the development team, potentially seeing if we could put items like on the sidewalk, kind of like pushed away from the building along the edge. But again, it's something we propose to the city as potential solutions, but we're really working with the planning board on those. So there are instances where, the building is standalone and it has the ability to put trash on the side. We drove around, we said, well, so what are people doing now? What we saw the most was a trash bin in front, So it seems like it's something that obviously, New York City's dealing with this now, and it's been, worse there because of the density, but we're definitely just trying to focus on the building, and we also don't want to introduce something that takes it away from what the character of the neighborhood is. So that's where we're at with that.
Because garbage will do that.
So, I apologize, this isn't about the building, so we'll come back there. Is there, so relative to the garbage and the right-of-way issues, et cetera, are you having other discussions that kind of might lessen the challenge with this internally? Is it?
It's being discussed, as Eduardo said, as the development plan review moves forward and comments from other departments. Things that are located within the public right of way, there are additional steps. It's not just something that can be reviewed by our department or our boards and signed off on it. There are additional steps that have to take place legally to allow something like that. It is something that we constantly see, so it's something that we are well aware of and are, constantly talking about, because it's something not only with developments like this, but for existing structures that don't either have alleyways or stoops that they can store trash and other, recycling bins and things like that, that we do get constant inquiries about. So,
Do you have any good solutions on particular projects?
We've seen, the development for home leasing along Clinton Avenue. Some of those, it was under stoops. There's trash rooms with, interior to buildings when they have the space. I think it was also on the Larch Street Habitat for Humanity projects, I believe. They actually carved out space within their vestibule that they were able to fit two bins.
That's right.
So that was just outside the front vestibule entry. There was that, but it depends. I think some other places, I think one I saw where they did have the build out under the pre-cast stoop to be able to fit from the rear of it, and then put a gate across. There was that, but it is a difficult situation.
Do you have any situations where you've explored or seen explored, where there's a wide enough sideway in the front, a separate enclosure?
No.
Not
kind of out towards the street, I guess?
Not that I have seen.
Yeah.
One of the things that we run into in the RT district and some of our other mixed use and stuff is that it's a 0 lot line setback, and so a lot of those buildings are built right up to the front property line, so anything forward of those front walls is really in the public right of way, and that situation then requires additional, legal considerations and things like that for use and permission to use the right of way for things like that. I think a couple other where they've utilized the alleyways, being able to take up certain and creating kind of enclosure spaces within the alleyways.
We've seen that,
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, just one quick note about the alleyway here. The maximum width of the alleyways in this district is 3.5 feet. So, where we do have 3.5 feet, we're hoping that, even if they're sideways, we can put some stuff in there. But obviously, there are locations where it's 3 feet. So, we're we're trying to work with those areas, but.
I'm sure you are. It's interesting because we spend a lot of time on other elements, but wow, what a big impact garbage has
Right.
on the street.
Right, New York City,
Wow.
New York
It's a weird
City's
but
trying to be
still.
the European model of the community,
That's right.
you know, so
That's right.
that's something that obviously that the city can discuss and say, hey, we have these areas where this might work, and then, you know, we could solve some problems in other people. So that's obviously outside of what we're discussing.
Okay.
Very interesting topic.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, we can just start with the first.
Do all of the buildings, are they a zero lot line? They're built out to the property line?
Almost all of them. There are a couple locations, and Eduardo and the team from Pissarro has provided kind of the contextual information where there might be like a foot setback, and it is those setbacks are contextually accurate for what is on the street. So I think it's like for Tunis and 36th 3rd Street, they have a foot setback, and that is in line with the neighboring structures.
Yeah.
So, but I think for the most part, outside of a few properties here and there where they have provided the information, everything is pretty much a zero line.
Yeah, we do have some corner lots, so I think there was at one point, you know, we're using the front on one side, and then the other side we use the setback, but we've been asked to kind of use 2 front lots as the zero line. Yeah.
Well, I think the important thing is that they align with whatever surviving structures on either side.
And I think there were a couple right now where the site plans, especially for the development plan reviews, are being revised in order to align better with the contextual setbacks on the street.
Yeah, I think it was
Correctly.
the corner lots.
Yeah.
In one location had a bit of a gap between one, like 3rd Ave and the, and that front side, because it's the side of the building, but it's the front, front frontage, which will be corrected.
So as long as those are all corrected and they are in compliance, then that can move forward. And I think that was one of the things that we're kind of waiting to see if those are brought into compliance before there is sign off for the certificate of appropriateness, because within the certificate of appropriateness review criteria for new construction, there is the requirement that all new buildings are in compliance with the setbacks or contextual setbacks. Also, I think for the RT districts and some of the mixed use districts, there's also that kind of stipulation within the dimensional standards. So as long as those are brought into compliance with those standards, then they can move forward. Otherwise, if not, it would have to go for variance in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals. So.
Yeah, and then another thing, just speaking with Andy, because he's getting ready to sleep.
Person in our civil department.
Oh, sorry, right, our civil engineer, I
Yeah.
should say, sorry. We are, you know, gonna get sort of feedback on the facades here, so that when the DPR drawings go in front of the board there, they're the same as what, you know, is current here, so they're not conflicting, because there's modifications that need to be made.
So with that.
Start with, okay. And I don't know if you guys have seen the overall site plan, but this is the one, COA 1057 is one of the further out projects. It's closer to, it's down on Broad Street, closer to get to Pearl, so that gets a little north. As opposed to the other buildings being more clustered together. So here we have, in this DPR, we have 3 buildings that are aligned sort of on the front side. The middle building should have a little bit more of a beige color. It's a little washed out in this elevation here, but here we have the buildings raised about 3.5 feet or so, just because the back of the site sort of raises as you go from front of the building to the back of the building. So one of the things that we are doing is we don't have basements, so we're doing slab on grade construction here. So we're going to basically the highest point, so in the back the building isn't buried. As you come in here on the front elevation, which is the Broad Street side, we have the two buildings on the left and the right that are of a sort of, I believe that one's a board and batten. Sorry, Karen.
Yeah, support and batten.
Yeah, so board and batten, just very sort of. Here it was one where we had different sort of materials kind of happening on the left and on the right, but now it's just one single material with sort of fiber cement, board and batten, and then we have the cornices up above, and then we have a concrete foundation wall that is, and these would be sort of textured with, because we have insulation panels with a little bit of a sort of a, called like wall guards, since we have issues insulating on the inside of on the back, behind the foundation walls. We're insulating on the front side, so they have a little bit of a texture, and they will have seams. You don't really see them here, but they would have some seams there, and it wouldn't look necessarily raw. It would look finished.
Are they seams? Are they scoring to look like block?
So they're scoring, but they're more, because these panels come in sort of like 4 foot, 4 foot by 10, but so you put them on sort of a 4 foot, but you can cut them up to have sort of a, not like a CMU style block, but, sort of more just score lines that go along. I did provide some material information for the wall guards, so I don't know if that's part of the, but you can see sort of examples of where that's been used on other projects.
Why did you choose to go to a smaller window for the middle building? Those are very small windows compared to the overall facade.
Yeah, and I think these windows here, they're actually the same size as the ones on the side, but they don't have the trim board, so they look a little bit smaller.
Mm.
Sort of the inside without the trim board because they have the panels there. But those are sort of so one thing we wanted to do was be able to provide windows that were tall enough, but then also had the ratio of, the sort of taller, slender windows look. So then once you get a little wider, then they look more squarish. So that's why we went with these windows here, because otherwise it'd have to get pretty tall, and then your ceiling heights. The sills are already relatively low, so we can get taller windows in there. And then if we went wider, they'd have to be even taller, and then we ran into like the ratio problems. So, and then all these windows would be Fibrex, is the basis of design, but that's basically a composite, they're not vinyl, so there's sort of like a composite windows, which are cost effective for the project. And we have the stoops, which are concrete, and here they would have sort of what we're thinking is providing some sort of stain on them so that they're not just completely raw, and they have a finish to them, and then black metal railings with pickets and the handrails, and then here, as you can see, the height of from the sidewalk to the top is about 3 feet or so. So we're just putting these sort of cast in place just so they can be as durable as possible without them sort of falling apart.
So the low side, given the topography, because you're on a slight hill there, which is the taller side? Is it the backyard? The backyard has the ground.
Yeah, so it goes up.
So it's not in reverse, and we can't say this would be a great place to put the trash.
Good try though.
Yeah. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Back to the that elevation, these haven't really changed that much, the stoops and all.
No.
Yeah. But, and zoom into that front elevation. The flanking members feel appropriate. That center one's,
It'll be the only one in the entire neighborhood.
it's a,
There are panels along South Pearl, but,
it's not the material. I think the question that you asked, I think the proportions are,
It's obviously more blank on the left side than the right side.
Once you remove the window trim that they have on the flanking buildings, it becomes it's a different appearance.
you know, I
And maybe
mean,
that's what you it's going towards like a ultramodern look.
but it's not that either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny.
so one of the reasons we have sort of the offset there with the podium was because without having basements, and you can see it more on the plan, you would see it here. So the 2 stories are basically duplexes.
Yep.
So you come in, there's sort of a vestibule. That door you see there is the door that takes you upstairs to the 2nd floor. And then when you come in that vestibule, there's to the right, there's another door for the other unit. In the 3-story, because we're now, we need a 1-hour staircase that takes us into each unit on the 2nd and the 3rd floor. It requires basically a stair shaft. So that stair shaft there is also useful for us because on the ground floor, so it does require the door to then be shifted to the right of it. Yeah, and then the space that's underneath the stairs actually provides us with the space for utility to be able to get utilities into the building and placed underneath in that area, which is needs to be on an exterior wall as they come in. So you can see it in the plans, but that's sort of why. I mean, I honestly, especially us as architects, we just want to move that to the left and center it. But given the plan and how it works with the it does require a bit of shifting.
It's not really the shaft, it's really the stair. Because whether you need a shaft, I mean, to get a 1-hour wall.
Well, it's the stairway.
It's the stair
It's the
itself.
We would call it shaft, the
Yeah,
stairway.
it's the stair and the
Stairway.
dimensions for the stair.
And then obviously the material does eliminate the need for the trim, but obviously if a different material goes in there, we can then change the trimming of that window.
And the floor to ceiling heights, if
The ground floor windows are taller.
they're not as troublesome to
That's
me.
good.
Perhaps because there's so much going on at the entrance, right, and the canopy. It's kind of at the upper floor.
Yeah, so the floor to floor height on the first floor, it's 9 feet.
Yeah.
And then on the upper floors, it's 8 feet.
It's 8 feet.
Yeah.
The first floor windows are taller because you've got the greater fourth floor. The second floor and the third floor windows are they maxed out relative to required sill heights and ceilings? Or you're just kind of following?
Yeah, I mean, one thing in this case, you can see it, so the trim, and let's see, yeah, that, the two buildings that are next to each other kind of show you the alignment, but then on the left side, obviously that building's lower, so the windows are gonna be a little lower there, but, yeah, it's one of those things where looking at the sort of standard sizes, that's the size that fits the width to height ratio, that, where it's like twice, the width is twice the height type of sort of rhythm that we were going for. You get wider, then they stay around the same height, because I think there is a wall section where we can see that relationship of the windows to the ceiling. But yeah, it starts to get really tight. You don't really hard to frame once you get a little bit higher without lowering the windows even more.
The appearance of the middle building does not appear to be in character with the district. The two flanking buildings, I like those. Okay.
So, and again, this building here, we're gonna see many times, so duly noted, you know, you're gonna see it sort of in relationship to other buildings and probably have the same.
It may be different.
Okay,
You know?
and yeah,
But as this threesome right here,
okay.
I
just,
think this group with the two flanking it makes it look particularly odd.
Yeah.
Or out of place.
but now if you put these three in the context of the buildings, neighboring buildings, it may work, I don't know. But as it stands now, it's just,
There were some elevations, Aaron, that we did show the adjacent buildings.
yeah, I think we would have requested that. I don't know whether you
I think
did
they were
that
in the
initially.
last, I have to go back to the last presentation.
Yeah, sorry, I built this off of the packet that was provided for this one.
There's some loose files at the beginning that kind of, because it's an overall, I didn't wanna do the whole overall thing, you know, where I think this time we're doing each one individually, so I think it's.
So when we see it again, or as you keep chewing on it, here's some thoughts that I have, it's the combination of the overall ratio, the amount of glazing to the overall size of the facade, which is troublesome to me, I think. And perhaps that's more important in my mind as I'm studying it than the 1 to 2 that you set up for the smaller buildings. It seems to work there, meaning the height to the width, or the the width to the height. So it's
We can look at that one, and you know, I have to look at it again to see what the maximum height. Because one thing we could do is, you know, try to lower it a little bit, or maybe. So you're saying the ratio of the windows relative to the.
the overall facade. Yeah.
So this is the old one. That was when it was bright.
Yeah.
Some of it is an illusion of color.
I like that color.
It shrinks the, well,
I
it
do.
shrinks it down.
Well, we can go back to it, but it's not loud.
But
It's a lack of casing makes them shrink.
maybe you know, simplifying the material to be able to, but being able to case them out, sort of widens them.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of you held to that same proportion on the smaller buildings, and maybe where the relationship, the square footage of each opening to the overall dimensions makes sense, but when you transferred it here because the building is so much wider and taller, the relationship of solid to void got lost or changed. So that's number one. Number two is that you've held to you've held tightly to the panel configuration. And so I guess we should go to the more current version.
Yep.
But that was great to see. Thank you.
It looks like somebody who really likes Tudor, but doesn't want anything to be diagonal. And all the boards are extra skinny.
Yeah.
And what's the blank surface in between? Is it like a stucco look when you look at it?
Oh, these are
Flat.
just like fiber cement panels.
Yeah, they're just.
But they're one solid panel, no break in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is,
They have trim pieces that's sort of.
yeah, but it's
With
gonna make
different
it look like a Tudor type of thing, which would be essentially a stucco. It won't be, but that's what the surface will look like.
Yes.
It'll look like a Tudor that was waiting to have a different design to it. I don't know, just, it's tough to get used to.
To me,
for that neighborhood.
If you had trim elements around the windows, it certainly would dramatically alter the appearance.
Which you
of
could
it.
do, you know,
And
we
I
can
think
put those.
it's a matter of looking at the detailing of this facade and how the joints are made up with the fiber cement panels.
Mhm.
And can that joint be kind of minimized or, brought down so you don't have this kind of very rigid grid on the building? And it gives you an allowance to do a trim around the window, so that, it's a similar kind of window set in a different field of material.
Yeah, but I think we can look into maybe providing some detail around those windows so that.
I think color plays a real important part in all of this. And that previous slide projection with that middle building in that mustard color was great.
If Aaron
It
really cared,
was-
she'd have come tonight.
Huh?
Aaron
Well, y'all talking about,
It's kind of dead, that one was alive and this one's,
It's not a Halloween. That mustard color is not a Halloween.
we'll get color samples, yeah.
I just think it's striking.
Yeah.
Visually.
I wonder if the grid was the exact same color as the base, so that the design around the windows was more of a usual casing, which would make them look wider, and if it was the same material for the back, it would be less startling.
I think one thing, the black lines are sort of a lot, they match, the reveals actually match the panels, so there's a little less of sort of black lines there, but sort of less of a grid. But I think, like what we're talking about, maybe detailing around the windows could be a way of sort of adding a little to it,
One more thought is, there's a lot of buildings that we have in Albany that are not exactly symmetrical. So they've got a room added on the side or the stair or whatever that is. And I'm not troubled by the asymmetry, although it's kind of interesting because at the rear, it just kind of works there.
Yeah, because
Right.
there are two rooms that you don't have.
It just kind of works.
Yeah.
But
Stairs in the front, not in the back.
yeah, but
It's a
it
bump,
does
yes.
feel that if on that primary facade, that as you play with the panel configuration and or the trim, that almost if you accentuated from the left corner, that next vertical line, that's kind of in the middle of the stairway. If that guy, if that was accentuated, it would kind of help.
And wait, essentially, you mean like moved out or just
Wider?
emphasized?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, those are just little different pieces for you to play with, and you've been so responsive to us. But that might help create the illusion of a more symmetrical building, or change the expanse of flatness there.
So move the balance a little bit more to the right.
So,
We can look into those.
yeah. Well, one down.
One down.
26
Bring back modern day symmetry.
Uh,
2 a.m. is cut off at 2? Is that like a bar? Closing time 1:45?
We really will need a. Thanks. All right.
So this one is a much bigger one that will probably cover a lot in one. So, actually, this is this is 3, and then next to it there's 5. So that's why.
The DPR is broken into the 5 and the 3.
Yep. So this is a situation where you basically have that middle building that we had on the other block, but it's repeated, 3 times next to each other, and because of the heights of the buildings, because of the height of the slope, and the need to raise as you go from left to right, the buildings have the differences in height from the first to the second. But here, we were trying to also do the same thing where you have the two flanking ones that are similar and then the one in the middle that's different. And in this case, as you can see, it's slab siding in the middle, and then sort of the board and batten on the flanking sides with a little trim piece between at the floor lines. So.
And it's taller, you'd have a place where you could put trash cans underneath each one of those steps.
Maybe the one all the way to the right.
A short trash can.
I don't know if the city has those. We looked at the heights that they have those.
Also, recycling bins, it's all.
Yeah, so,
Also, the middle one doesn't tower above the other two.
Oh.
Because there was an 11-foot difference, 11 1/3 feet on the previous one.
yeah,
This is just essentially the same, slight difference, which is a nice variety.
yeah, because in here we have the 3 stories and 3 stories on each side. Where the other one, we had the 2, just sort of the ratio for the units. And, that was.
How far do the cornices project?
On the side, a couple feet. Oh, out, not too much, so they're.
Looks very flat.
And they are relatively flat, so they're fiber cement panels. The top piece probably sticks out, about that much, and then the bottom pieces there stick out, we have some framing behind them.
There's sections in the set.
There was at some point,
illustrate that.
yeah, they're not,
They're pretty
Yeah.
flat.
yeah, they're relatively flat.
They're in the packet, but they try to conserve them size.
And here we have a situation where on the opposite side of, there's actually on the opposite side of this street on Broad, I looked at all the windows and what's existing and what's there, who knows how original they were relatively, the one way at the end had the, sort of like the 6/1 or something. So it was kind of all over the place, so it's really hard to determine exactly what, but here what we did was try to give some, we have those 4/4s.
6/6.
6/6.
And then 2/2.
Yeah, 2/2s.
Yeah, the bottom.
6/1, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
6/1,
6/1, it's just because the B1, which indicates the type of window it is from just showing the window schedule.
You can go 1/1, I think, it's simple, it doesn't.
That's what we did in the previous one, and if that is acceptable.
That's
with
cheap,
Yeah.
I think, you're not trying to make it look historic.
Right.
But sort of blend in with the historic district.
Yeah, I think we're for the most part good with that. We just want to make sure that whatever we do present, you're accepting.
As flat as this is, I still like it.
I like it.
It's colors.
So this was one that did have a lot of variety in the previous version, and I think what we did here, and we don't have the before and after here in front of us, but there were, those were the stairs where there were changes in materials. So I think, you can see there. So this was one where we came in and said, let's get rid of these panels working on this side and that side. Let's just make it much more.
That's psychedelic.
It is an answer.
It's just.
Yeah.
Your eye is just moving. I mean, it would be a fun place to just, every time, I want to walk this way to go to work. Look at that.
Well, it's very dynamic, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, so there's something to be said for excitement.
The bands of color also diminish the fact that you've got, with the stair tower within the building, you've got the one wider bay, and you kind of lose that.
Yeah.
The color varies.
Yeah.
On the facade.
So I'm wondering if, even though, as Jack pointed out, the one we just spent so much time talking about was so much taller, the center building, but the vertical siding or the horizontal siding works. We don't have the same challenges that we just spoke of with the first one we looked at today, with the panels, where they are. It kind of mitigated when you switched to these materials. It kind of, I think the grid didn't help. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
In that particular location along Pearl, that building there that's in the middle could they're the same, basically the same building. That facade could change to that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, why was the grid chosen as a design element in the first place?
You
Just
know, I
something
do remember the
different?
time yep, let's do something different.
Yeah.
It was like,
Okay.
let's,
Yeah,
that's
that's cool.
something, you know. And I think the original thought was that we would have like a sort of frame around the building and then these would be a little pushed back, but it's too expensive and stuff. So then, you know, things get flattened out and in some cases they work, in some cases they don't. So,
Oh, I think it's flattened out.
I do want to say one last thing, I'm sorry about the last one, because we'll see it again, is these are very comfortable now for the neighborhood.
Yes.
They're almost so comfortable that they verge towards the boring spectrum. They're, right, they'll fit in perfectly well. Some of the excitement of some modern, some new alternate approaches and new materials has been lost. That's a tricky assignment, but kind of in particular on South Pearl, or I'm not sure where, but we don't really mean to discourage any contemporary design on these buildings either. So for lots of reasons, you kind of retracted to here, which works and it's comfortable and it will fit in, but some of the excitement of contemporary designs been lost.
Yeah, and what we can do is as we go through these, there might be some instances where you still see some of those elements, and then we can, you know.
Well, the mixed-use buildings in the package seem to convey that.
Yeah.
Yes.
They have a little different feel to them.
Yeah.
These are pretty regimented.
And these also, to be fair, also repeat, again, 62 times, you're doing things over and over. And obviously, if there's little elements you can put in here and there that make it look nice and pop is nice, but we're also trying to make it, sort of simplifying it so that it's not gonna be, you know, it looks fine here, but then it's repeated like 6 times and then all of a sudden it kind of loses its luster. So we're trying to, you know, kind of balance that. So there's a constant sort of back and forth of looking at these is, you know, Leah here has worked on these for a long time. You look at them, you
Close your eyes.
and then you gotta remember to step out and see the entire thing again, because, you know, you do one thing and then it gets repeated, so you wanna move it.
Well, I appreciate your conversations about this and deliberations. Yeah.
But I would suggest going with one over one.
Yeah, 101's okay. Yeah.
Throughout the entire
Put that in
project.
writing. All right, so.
Move on to the next.
So this is adjacent to that. So there's a building in between, right? Or is it an empty lot? I forget. It's a building in between.
You haven't marked.
It's a building in between. So
Yeah,
that's
building in
basically that
between.
situation there. So wherever we have, yeah. So this is one too, where we have the grid up in the middle there. And this one's slab on grade, or it's on grade, so it's a little different. But it was, in my mind, here where you have these, it's to break up
The grid works, I
tradition,
think,
you know,
because it's not overpowering.
Yeah, and in this case here, it's kind of within the range of the colors, so it's not, you know. So here, in this, like in the other one, it might make sense to like, you know, change it up, but here the grid kind of breaks up the building, so it's not just your typical, you know, 5 straight, you know.
It sort of
It also
blends
fits
in.
in with the other 3 story buildings adjacent to it. It's not
Maybe that's
all
what
of a
it is.
sudden popping up.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe
it's
the
different,
height,
it
like
sticks out like a
Jackson.
sore thumb, like if it's too different, you know, just stick out.
And the 3 on the right-hand side are handicap accessible, I take it.
One of them is, but those are the visitable ones, the ones that could be adapted into units with, they'll have all the sort of blocking and everything to make it and removable. So if someone that is in that unit eventually needs to be adapted. And well, there's one that's gonna be, the one with the wheelchair symbol, that one there will be adapted and ready to go for a wheelchair resident, and then the 2 on the side will be visitable, which means they'll have everything ready in case they do need to be, and obviously the ones on the left are difficult due to the grade
Right.
that's above.
I do have to say that the building on the right, the two-story building, seems out of proportion. Windows, solid windows, and maybe the basement windows, the first floor windows are too low to the ground. It's, maybe you need more of a water table, something. It just seems,
I think it's that ratio again of solid to
Yeah,
void.
and it's,
Yeah.
and it's,
Yeah.
you know, and also, not to blame the zoning district, but because of the zoning district requirement of being 3'5" max, we can't create like an alleyway and make that narrower. So we had to stretch it out to fit sort of within the lot line. So basically between the 2-story and the 3-story, there's a lot line there. And then 3.5 feet from the short building is the other lot. So we can't, if we're narrower, we have to go to zoning board and get it like a
Well,
variance.
It looks very squat and it looks like it's sunk.
So one thing we can do is, and because it's much easier to do, so is raise the building a little bit to give it a little bit more of a.
Raise the building or you.
Or
could
raise
put-
the parapet, raise the top, you know, not
Yeah,
so much.
or you could put some kind of a lintel, basically flush on top of particularly the 2 bottom windows. That would elevate.
Kind of like a water table type of
Yeah.
thing, element.
No,
No, it's
you put it on the
above-
roof, or you put it on the
Lintels,
top of
like
the
a window cap.
window cap,
Okay.
just
above
For
the
the trim,
windows.
yeah, for the
above the
trim.
window, yeah.
And by window cap, I just want to be
Oh,
clear.
lintel.
A little.
That's why I said a lintel.
Okay.
So if there was a lintel, which would be up and above that, it would make them look higher, but might also make the whole building look higher, at least on that first floor.
Okay, maybe what we could do is put in like a panel there, you know, that it's like a lintel,
Needs more,
basically.
needs something, a base, a taller base.
You also,
I don't know, that'll make it squat.
yeah, you also changed the color on the bottom. Maybe that's the one case where it shouldn't have a different color on the bottom.
Oh, from the,
Because that's
from the siding,
from the side,
Okay.
Because that made it
to
squat.
make it squatter, yeah, it would, yeah, make it nice. Okay.
Or a different color at their base, you saying?
No, he's saying just keep it the same color as the siding, so then that the siding looks, so it looks taller, more vertical than horizontal.
Oh, okay.
Well, with all the funds we just saved by having 1-over-1 windows, maybe.
I don't know if that is
They're a little larger.
Yeah.
They're just some grids, but still, yeah, maybe as you look at that one.
I'd like to keep some variety in windows though, rather than having more.
I mean,
like-
what we
Okay.
could do is 1-over-1 baseline with a couple of sprinkles here and there.
Because of the width of the building, does it make sense to have more windows?
Like 4 across, you said?
Do 4 across instead of the 3.
So we ran into issues of patterning and coming into contact with the.
I think there was a, one of the things, because all the buildings have 3, so then, you know, we could look at, there was, obviously that's costs, so we can, you know, take a look at that, but maybe try to find ways to, make it, stretch it a little bit.
Wider, taller,
Well, taller, we can't go any, well, we could go wider, but no, we don't wanna go wider, we wanna go taller, if anything. But yeah, that one is, and you'll see that one again, and there might be one instance where you're like, hey, that does work, so let's see if, you know, we can do it like that. So that's the great thing about having 62 different buildings. When that works.
Anything else? We can move on?
This, I think this is this is a standalone one, and this is one where, you know, it's one of these situations where the canopy orange stayed. And it might be, because it's an individual building. But, you know, that's something that could be, you know, kind of like a little color at those canopies to give it a little bit of pop there.
Yeah.
But this is a situation where, if you look at it relative to, it is next to an existing building, and they're all sort of the tall and stretched out buildings. But it's very similar to the one that we saw that was on the side of the first building, but it's sort of standalone.
I think that's an interesting concept about the color and just punches of color, because it's a pretty neutral building, and it'd be nice to say, oh yeah, I'm on Broad Street and I've got the one with the green awning,
Yeah.
right? Or the red awning, or whatever kind of mix of colors. That's fun to think about, I think, yeah.
Yeah, that works. I like, well, personally, I can't speak for anybody else. Personally,
I like the orange spot.
yeah,
Yeah, I like it.
because I don't consider it orange.
Right. It's fire brick.
So all the work these.
Okay.
Okay.
I gotta believe you can,
Pumpkin spice
It's
latte.
nice.
I gotta believe you can put a trash can under that.
So
Yeah.
this, so obviously, we can talk about, probably situations where they are a little higher. So one thing we are looking at, just because of the way that the buildings are designed, is to, potentially, work with the planning board to see where we can put some trash cans on some of those. And this one actually is adjacent to a park that is also gonna be developed by the ownership team. So, and then there's, I believe, there's more space here. Again, yes, trash might be able to fit underneath the stoop there, but it might also be one where it has a lot of space around it.
It would have to be there due to the slope on the side of the property being so.
Oh, yeah. And there's always carriages and bicycles and things like that too, if you wanna have families.
Well,
I don't wanna carry up those stairs all the time.
We can move on.
So this is one that's adjacent to a building where this one is one of our white variety, our French chateau. So, but it's very similar to the one, and I could see how maybe adding a color to the awning, and I'd have to talk to the contractor to make sure we can get a maybe pre-finished color palettes that have like a red or something.
Boy, that's one tall step.
Yes.
Has one of the most extreme elevation changes between the front and the back of the property.
And I think we are trying our best to do the most to, push the building down as much as possible. And we'll work with Andy on our civil engineer on those, because as you can see, the slope on this one is pretty intense
We have extensively worked to try to reduce the height.
as much as possible.
Yeah, it's been a continuous conversation. We try to work as hard as we can.
It's a workout. Because the idea is that in the back, that they're pretty much, just barely below the slab.
Right.
And then in the front, you have obviously a drastic change.
No, this has,
What's that dimension from the grade to?
8 foot 10 inches.
And then that might be one that we're going to try to bring down a couple feet, if possible. And
there's no back door?
no,
What if there's a fire?
so it's just through the front end. The egress windows, those are emergency escape windows. All the bedrooms have emergency escape windows, and that's why they're wider, but they're shorter. So that's why we didn't go with that ratio on the front side.
But there could be a little backyard there.
There will be some, so it's just the way that those units, because they're so narrow, once you put in like a corridor or a hallway, you lose the bedrooms there.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, you see some of those, sunken or a basement, and they come out to the backyard, but it's,
Not there.
Yeah.
And these are all rentals?
they are.
That's a lot of stairs.
Yeah, and I think, and we should point out, this, what COA numbers, or just 155 Broad?
Just
That
a
should be correct.
CFA 1061.
Okay, just to make sure we can, see if we can drop that one at least a couple feet. We'll, yeah. 'Cause I think there's another one that's.
The assumption, that question about the access to the rear yards, the assumption is that you wouldn't want, in theory, you wouldn't want a door in a bedroom. Right? That's the assumption.
Yeah.
And the undesirability of that is what says there's no access to the rear.
I mean, there's, so, another thing, and I can't really speak for the ownership, but I can say, as these are rentals, you have people on the bottom, and if, you know, if this was a single family home, you have bedrooms on the top, and then on the bottom, you could do, like a living room and a kitchen, and it takes you out.
Access
But
to the
then
back.
here you have, you know, direct access for the ground floor unit, but not for the upstairs unit, and then there's sort of a.
So,
Well, I mean, and because then we lose bedrooms in the.
no, but I guess my question is, if, I understand there's probably 2 bedrooms across the back, in the back. If one had a door, wouldn't it be that you could choose to use or not? Wouldn't that be an amenity?
Are you talking about like just a exterior door?
Uh-huh. Like imagine a half-glazed door. Upper half is about the height of the window, and then it's solid below. But then at least at one level, one unit would have access to the rear yard, should they choose to use it. It would seem that having access to the rear yard could be really, really nice. Because you always have the option of not using it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's an ownership decision that we, you know, kind of follow the.
Yeah, well, maybe you could take that, that's not really our purview. But, in fact, how do the rear yards get maintained?
These, the development will have property managers and facilities, and, you know.
So they have access to all of them?
Well, there
on the
are
site
access
plan?
on the sides, so each of these blocks will have access on the sides, from one side of a block or another.
Yeah.
And then from there, that's sort of the access to the rear yards.
Well, you mentioned that, you said even though it wasn't our purview, would they? It was
Apparently
discussed.
Kaplan wants
It
to-
was discussed, that's all.
We're still on Broad, right? So-
Yeah.
Yeah.
155 Brad. Any,
Hope you guys have dinner.
Oh yeah, if you guys need to take a break, like, we're really grateful for you taking the time to do this, but we also understand it's.
Don't tell us.
60.
Don't. All right, I might have to take a water break, but
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
If anyone needs one.
Okay, we'll finish Broad Street.
So this is adjacent to that other one, and this was a little wider with, given the lot that it is, and then the requirement for the width of the coverage that needs to be. But again, we'll come back and then we'll add a little pop to those awnings. I kind of want to see
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah, and so that combination, kind of the play of color of the awning and or the doors, that should be fun. Because their buildings are pretty neutral at this point. You all have gutters,
We do in
rear
the back.
gutters?
They slope to the back, gutters, and then
Two gutters and down.
oh, sorry.
We're also doing this.
Oh.
so this is basically the same three that we saw previously. This works out that these three work on this block here, where it's, so on this side of Clinton, it's, I believe, Broad goes from sort of the flat low side to the high side in the backyard. And then Clinton, now we're at the high side, and the backyard's the low side. So here we have an opportunity to put entrances on grade. And the hearing and visually impaired unit that you see on the left there, or the left one is one which, it's like an accessible unit, but for someone more with hearing and vision. There's devices in there and it's accessible. All these three are visitable.
And the others could be converted with.
Yeah, the others can be converted. Yeah. So 10% of our units will be accessible. 4% will be what they call HVI, hearing and visually impaired.
So you're not talking about A's and B's anymore. What was the word you used? Divisible?
Visitable.
Visitable.
Oh, you're thinking like type A versus type B.
So they're
Yeah, that's
these
what
are-
I
So
thought.
these are type Bs with type A bathrooms.
Yes.
And they're for the state funding. They're called visitable, which means that someone that you can go in there and they're all fully adapted. They can be
They're adaptable.
Type B.
HCR, not to be confused with HRC.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I thought the ownership group was talking about H. No, I
Yeah.
thought they were talking about the state, and I was like, I think the letters are.
Visitable.
So visitable is what they call it. So basically, someone who is, let's say you're living there and you're not in a wheelchair, you have an elder, visitor that can come in, it's visitable, like someone can, there's the bathroom can have grab bars.
That's an HDR.
Yeah.
So they include like the blocking walls and everything, just in case.
And if you have a 3-bedroom, you include one with that's sort of around, like an extra bathroom.
You can add some colors to the canopies here too.
Yeah.
Why the little windows on the
So
back of the other?
it's a bathroom there. In that specific
Okay.
unit, there's a bathroom there, so we wanted to be able to at least get some air, but not be a full window, because it conflicts with the grab bar areas.
We would rather than be full, we are working within the confines of the HCR in terms of what the total size of any individual unit can be. And as a result, some of our choices decisionally are based on that, hence the bathroom window being a little smaller and being in that position.
Yeah, New York State requires that like if you're in an apartment building, every building has to be a type B. If it has an elevator access or is accessible, a type B with a type A bathroom, which means it's basically like a bathroom that could be handicap accessible. So we don't want to put a window where if in the future they add blocking and put wrap bars, then you're blocking the window. So.
Right. Okay, good explanation.
It's funny, New York State would never approve it, but I was in a pretty fancy space not so long ago, and they had a tall window, traditional window, and they just had their grab bar
I think
across the window.
Yeah.
Pretty radical concept.
I mean,
Yeah.
Existing buildings, yeah. So this is one where, this is also in Clinton, okay, but this is one where for some reason we're on the other side, across the street. So this is one where it's a two, and they're basically symmetrical from each other, and they're basically about the same height. This is basically the 3 that we saw on the first building without the middle one.
Mirror architecture. They're mirrors.
But that's a lot of concrete-ish like material that's under the, although it would hold a lot of garbage cans.
Well, if we had a front door, you'd have to have
Any
a
reason,
front door.
it's
So the reason why they're
yeah,
that
why'd you
way,
do it that way?
because we needed steps to go out, and we couldn't go this way and run into each other.
Oh, you didn't have enough,
Yeah, not enough
They,
space.
because they're technically separate properties, they cannot share the
'Cause-
same stoop.
Well, not even so much that, so imagine if we flip them the other way, now the stairs are facing each other, and when you get down the
Come down the
stairs,
bottom of the
there's no
stairs, you'd hit the back
clearance.
wall of the other
Yeah,
stairs.
or you wouldn't be able, right, that would happen if we had one and then the other one, but if we kind of put the doors on the opposite ends, the stairs would run into each other and the landing would have to be shared.
what about one flipping?
Then you would hit the wall, the other one. You wouldn't have enough enough like
clearance.
clearance.
Yeah.
The reason why we do this is because we have the 3.5 feet alleyway that then gives us, and again, there's like 62 of these, there's been so many studies and stuff like that, and that's, sometimes you do it because that's what works, and then you look at it and you're like, well, it's the way it looks, and,
This was an example where we lowered it too. We lowered
This
it
is lowered now?
And it's civil site drainage issues. So we've been trying to find our best way to be able to lower these, and we've done it to many of them.
yeah, the problem is that once our civil engineers are trying as much as they can to slope gradually as much as possible, obviously in some cases, because of the narrowness of those alleys on the side, the slope has to be pretty steep, but you don't want it too steep where someone has to hike up to go to the backyard. So basically you kind of have to find a middle ground to be able to like slope it so that it's gradual and be able to access it.
We're not gonna let you in the backyard anyway.
What can you do to minimize the
Yeah.
the impact of all that stair, all that cheek wall?
Yeah, all
That's a lot of wall.
It is, it's a lot. The only thing I can think of is to apply material to that, but then that obviously, there's a cost associated with that, but, that one is, that one
You put an arch underneath it and a Madonna underneath.
Mm-hmm.
mosaic tile.
Sorry.
I don't know how substantial that vertical scoring is, because it's probably all constructed as well.
On the stairs,
Yes.
it's gonna be more of a stain than it is, the panels are only along the building, because the building has to be insulated at the stairs. So the scoring is only along the building, concrete, not the,
So if you, instead of having one vertical
in between the two,
line
yeah.
between the two, but I don't know the material, so I don't know what variations you have, what variables you have in terms of width of scoring or depth of the scoring or anything like that. But if you had two, one at both sides of the outer part of each landing, at least it would
We could,
do a little more to break up
I
that
see what you're saying, we
expanse.
could score that a little bit to create.
And or strengthen, get a real shadow line or something in there as well.
Yeah, one thing you don't see here, and you would see it in the wall section of the stairs, is that the stair treads, they kind of come up and down like this, and the wall aren't flush. There's a bit of a shadow line. If you zoom in, Aaron,
Yeah.
to the, there's some sections there, but you can even just zoom into that staircase there. So you can see that there's a line where the landing and the slope of the stairs is. So that stair is pushed back, and maybe there we push it a little bit more to create more of a little shadow line there, and then you score it, I think, just so that there's a bit of variation. But that the idea there was that it's not just this flush concrete wall, that there is a little bit of depth.
So the landing slab and basically the stringer
The
profile
tread, right.
of the stairs are project out a little bit.
Yes.
Into the surface. Would you consider, something as simple as a form liner that gives some texture to it?
You could do like what some of those, there's in Rochester, there's an architect that, it was kind of like that brutalist period. We don't necessarily want to be brutalist, but they did have this, all the board form.
Mhm.
So then it has sort of the grain of the plywood, and I know that in some historic districts, they don't like the faux grain, but what you do end up doing is creating texture to the.
But if you found a texture that kind of looked like beadboard or something
I
like
say
that.
that. So it's just, that's actually something that's creative and expensive. Okay, so it's,
Thank you.
especially, what DPR or what COA is this?
This is 1060, sorry.
Are they in order from like 1057 to?
Yeah, so this is 1064.
Are those poured concrete?
The stairs are,
The stairs are poured.
Yeah.
And they're poured in place.
yes.
So the idea of a pattern, a stamp, which is what you're,
Yeah, that's what we're doing,
Asking.
yeah, you could,
you got a lot of choices there now
Oh, yeah.
for stamping pattern.
yeah, we can look at some options and
And,
see.
and every place where it's high, it's not just this
Right,
one,
right.
but every location that we saw where it was really high, that. And then I'm sure you can get block size and brick size and circles, and just many, many variations, but that might help where there's so much concrete.
And there's some architects that are known, like famous architects that do work and do forms, like Ted Alando, if you're familiar with Ted Alando. He does a lot of, sort of like form stuff, so we can look at something, obviously, where they're above a certain amount of height, we can
Yeah,
put in some.
We
That's
haven't
great.
played around a lot with color until we started hitting these really high.
that's great.
Marshall,
Okay.
We halfway in.
Yeah,
Second half.
we're on the second half?
No,
Oh, this is this is one of the big change ones.
It should be second.
I know,
half.
it should be second half,
Are we
yeah.
on 9 of 27?
Yes.
Okay. So we got
Oh,
five.
9, so
We can look at
third,
stuff.
we're third.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Right, so this is one of our bigger buildings, and this is along Second and Broad, I believe.
Yeah.
So the main elevations here are Broad Street elevation and Second Ave elevation. The west elevation and the south elevation are kind of between the alleyways, and the west elevation is behind, sort of behind the building. So you can zoom in a little bit. So we can start with the Broad Street elevation just to kind of define it a little bit. And in plan, you see a little bit more. So this building, it's a 5-unit building that has, on the ground floor, it has amenity spaces on one side, and then on the other side is a 3-bedroom unit. So there's 5 3-bedroom units. The bedroom unit on the ground floor is accessible. And then there's 2 3-bedroom units on the second and the third floor. They sort of stack up. And then on the bottom right here of this specific one is where we would have like our property manager's offices. So that's why there we have the storefront, which kind of gives it more of a commercial look. So it's kind of like right down the middle to the right. The bottom floor is more of the commercial amenity space, which in this case is offices. Here what we did is we provided a water table with brick, and then at the front, the brick kind of is at grade when it goes around to the Second Ave. You can see there. And then as it exposes the foundation, we're doing sort of like a split face CMU to get the texture along the areas where the foundation is extended. There's a bit of a precast cap that goes above the brick. And then above that, we have some fiber cement panels that have this 2-tone kind of color where you see the blue and the light blue. That main entrance there is both for, on the right-hand side is what gets you into the building for the residents. And then the left-hand side door is the door that gets you into the office spaces with a little sort of like I think it projects about 2 feet out canopy above the storefront there. And then up above, you have residential units with 3 bedrooms. Oh, and then the gray is fiber cement, just sort of more of the solid panels.
why did you go with the larger building on this site?
So we had a couple sites that are MUNE. It's a different type of district that permits a certain sort of density. And so here, it gave us an opportunity to, so we had an issue with 3 bedrooms, like accessible 3 bedrooms in the row, in the row house type building. So this gave us an opportunity to really add larger 3-bedroom units for the residents.
It's similar in scale to the school. There's a historic school on Second Avenue.
There is one, yeah.
17.
That's actually being worked on.
It is?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Who's working on it?
We'll talk about it at the end.
Oh,
Let's
sorry.
stick to
Yeah.
this.
So we'll talk
Sorry.
about it at another time.
At another time, yeah.
It's gonna be midnight, so.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's the thinking here, and then here to tie it back to the sort of buildings, we have a very, kind of a simple, what I'm calling a simple cornice. That area that you see, that's sort of just siding is sort of on the sides that you don't really see. It's just fiber cement siding that goes along the sides, so it's not on the primary facades.
I'm looking at Broad Street, or I'm looking at.
Second
Second
half, second
Avenue.
half.
The second Avenue.
Second half.
Which means the historic, School 17 is just up the street, or?
Yeah, it's
Yes, so this is Broad and Second Avenue, so as you move west from here.
These are a couple blocks away.
yeah, so
It's
if
on
you're
the-
looking at this.
Couple blocks.
Yeah, it's that way a couple blocks and on the other side of the street.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at this from the road, it's that way.
Yeah, so it's across the street from the school and down 2 blocks.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I find it pretty incompatible with the neighborhood, and especially if we've got the school across the way. It just seems to be an ultra-modern type of thing that should be up on, Central Avenue next to a parking lot. But it just is a radical departure from what we've been looking at, personally.
Does it feel to you, Jack, that that's about we're not looking at the floor plan, but we could make some guesses here, because you could see it, but it's a big building, I guess is the
Yes.
question. So does it feel to you that a facade treatment kind of going forward, that would be where, that would provide an approach to make this palatable in that context?
I think that should happen.
Okay, rather than
And
making a
also,
larger building.
we had trouble with the mismatch colors
Yeah.
on the same structures, and one of the reasons we didn't like one color going down, 2/3 going the other, is that it didn't give a sense of identity to number such and such, whatever it is. And this does that on one corner, but then it's inconsistent on the other corner. And it's like, what can I do that's different and mod and would make you feel great? But I don't think in this neighborhood, and not across from particularly, and I admit it is a couple of short blocks up for 17.
They're steep, so they're kind of tough.
It just, I try to simplify that one
Okay.
a bit.
And there are a couple other ones of these that we can look at, but we will note that.
I mean, what you've got on that street, let's pretend you're not in the neighborhood, and you're coming over Pearl, and you want to go up Second Avenue Hill. You're gonna see at least 2 very significant buildings. One is School 17, which is about 1875 or 80. And then you're gonna go up another block, and you're gonna find Our Lady Help of Christians School, which functions as a rehab center, and it's in good shape. And then you have the 1880 German Gothic Catholic church next to it. And these are nice buildings. And I don't think you want to clash with them. You don't want to blend with them, but you don't want to clash with them. And that's probably to the left of what the kinds of things we're dealing with. I'd like it in the context of the neighborhood, and particularly the significant architecture, including the one that we earlier talked about. Was the one we talked about in the previous one, was the restoration of a a really historically significant building with this 1851, it has a mansard roof. So you've got now just between, the one in the corner's not bad either, there's a row, but basically you've got these significant historic architectural buildings that in their own right could be recognized. And then we're imposing something in color and design and boxiness, et cetera, that almost looks like it's fighting what we're trying to show off, saying, you really want to look at Lower Second Avenue. We have some significant things there.
So I want to say that to some degree, that was great. The size of this, that it's a larger structure, is beneficial to everything that you just spoke of. So more awareness of those and the whole corridor would be great. That's an interesting design exercise, so I appreciate that. But maybe again, we're fortunate that we've got a larger building proposed for that site, because otherwise we'd be struggling with the smaller units.
And there are 3 more of these, so we can look at them, and obviously.
In context, I guess.
Yeah, and there's 3 that are relatively close to each other, and we can, along Second Ave, and start to maybe say, okay, well, this works, this doesn't, I really like this. And there's one on South Pearl along that commercial strip that is different and more aligned with its neighboring buildings.
It's gonna look like commercial strip and.
Yeah, I'd like to see this in relation to its neighbors.
Great, I think.
I like the vibrancy. It's, it's new architecture. It should relate as new architecture. And you throw in a cornice over there and some stuff, and I think the size of it, that's why I went back to school, 17, that's it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a large building.
And I think that takes
Historic.
It's a
Well,
block.
it's historic brick,
Three roads, 3 streets.
And I know that on the downhill side where it's like, it almost looks like 4 or 5
Huge.
stories.
Yeah.
I think this would fit in. Well, that's again, everybody's got their little personal thing, Again, I'd like to see it in relation to, if you had like a long,
I think
4
we
block.
do, but I don't know if it has the fully adjacent buildings on this side, but yes. We can, as we go forward with this, we can see if there are some things from the other buildings that, similar comments or a little different, and also we can put that in context so that we can get a better idea.
You'd be making it look more like brick.
I've got to walk around down there and take a look at the context of it. As a large building, I kind of like the contemporary nature of it. And it's clean. It's not trying to, evoke something earlier. Those are all positive aspects of it, and how it relates to its neighbors is just something to study.
We've been involved with a few projects that are newer, that really totally do not blend in.
Tenbrook. Yeah, and it looked okay.
And what is it, North Pearl Street, Sanders, Dan Sanders.
Yeah. We got roasted on the temper.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, I do like it.
Yeah, there'll be some more. There is one that actually, when we get to 188 or whatever COA it is.
Any other comments about this one?
Excuse me?
Any other comments?
Yeah.
Next one.
Yeah, the next one is, this one I believe is a mirror of that other one. So it might be, it looks weird here, but that should be, so instead of the instead of the blue two-tone
Yeah.
here, we did left side, but if you zoom in a little bit, it looks just plain white, but it's not plain white. I think the color just, kind of came out.
It doesn't jar, it doesn't have that jarring effect.
And some might say it doesn't have the pizzazz of the other one, but, so.
Well, it doesn't have the mismatch, color on the left, but
Yeah.
not on the right, but.
But I think what you were saying,
The lower
when I saw that there, I see what you were saying, because if we had that with the sort of
Yeah.
more organized, and that could be fixed, definitely, and obviously next time you guys will see this, there will be adjustments and corrections.
Well, something like this is nice and it's tasteful and it's gonna fit in. And the criticism is it doesn't have that pizzazz. Maybe that's where you need the orange,
The awning.
you know,
Orange awning,
you may need something like
Give it a
that
little pop.
to make it stand up. And
Maybe
the same
orange
thing may
chorus.
happen with the other one we saw, just rearranging things a bit.
Yeah. This is the Second Avenue elevation, so this is, the other one is, they're one block apart.
And on opposite sides of the
On
street.
opposite sides of the street.
Just doesn't bother me, the clapboard on the left, that's on the same elevation as?
No, it's
Recessed?
It's recessed.
That's what I thought.
It is, it's further back.
And the one on the right is not
It's-
recessed.
No, it's further back as well. They're, in plan, they go back about 10 feet or so.
Oh, that's a lot, okay.
Or maybe, I'd have to see the plan. But and the sides you will see here are Second Ave and Clinton, so. And I will take the same thing we did at, the other one, where the little jog at the left there and kind of keep that the same as the material above, so that it looks a little bit more like that.
And the short windows in the center.
So those are kitchens,
That's
so
what I
they're
thought.
kitchens
Okay.
there, so we wanted to be able to have a sink for the kitchen, so we had to,
Sorry, this was a question actually that I had come up when I was going through. Which is gonna be your primary entry? Second Ave?
the one that is, at grade, so is that, Clinton?
That is,
So yeah, the Clinton will, so this is actually a building that's gonna have fitness and laundry in it. Because typically with a lot of these projects, you have a large, 40, 50 unit building, 2, 3 stories, and then on the ground floor, you have your community room, you have your,
general amenities.
yes, amenity spaces, fitness, laundry, da-da-da. So we are providing hookups for washers and dryers in all of the units, but because the washers and dryers are not included, and the reason being, those tend to break a lot. There's like 166 units. What happens is the residents are given the opportunity to provide their own washers and dryers, with the understanding that not everyone can. So then, in that case, there are washers and dryers provided by the rental in a private space that is then used by the residents.
And fully accessible too.
Yeah,
There
they're
are stairs on
accessible.
the one side for the front, but
And there's, so that entrance there on the right goes directly into the washer and dryer room. The one on the left goes into a corridor that then can take you into the fitness room. Or a unit up on the ground floor up above.
Washer dryer hookup screen, is that HDR requirement?
It's not a requirement, but if you don't provide them, then we would have to like double the amount of
Public ones. Yeah.
Centralized ones.
So your layouts must have that designated space?
Yeah, so in the very narrow units, we have stacked washer dryers, but then in all these 3 beds, we have side to side, and also in all the accessible, you have to have side to side. Because obviously someone can't reach the top. So this is another big building here. And this one here is along Tunis and Clinton Ave, so it's very similar, but it's a little more elongated on the north elevation, which is the Tunis side. The west elevation is along Second Ave, I believe. Correct. And the reason, or is it Second Ave? I think the
Big ones are all on Second Ave.
yeah, so I think, yeah, so actually Second Ave, no, it's because of grade where we have the main entrance or the primary entrance, but I think here we might have to, but anyway, in this building, what we have are is the community room. And the reason why we did the community room here is because we have a corner building where we had, accessible grade at the front there and can provide a lot of space and windows to have like a sort of street presence there. So when you're walking up and down Second Ave, you will be able to then see, the community room is there. So it's kind of sort of part of so those three windows there are.
One thing I'm finding out about these larger buildings, they sort of engage the neighborhood. I mean, it's exciting to look at, and that's what these neighborhoods need.
Yeah, and
Something.
and then these at the ground floor of most of these are part of, and in the community room here, obviously it's, for residents, but it's also like, hey, we're having a birthday party. So you can bring in people, and then the idea is that, they'll have a kitchenette, they'll have bathrooms in the community room, so they don't have to go into people's, obviously they don't have to go into other people's units. And then because there's a separation between the community room and the units and the corridors, so that there's separate entrances, privacy and security.
This used to be a vibrant community.
Yeah.
It's horrible now. And things like this, this type of construction and other things, to me, it's just it will rejuvenate the neighborhood. That's what it's all about.
Right, and that's the goal.
That's
Really,
the
we're
goal.
trying to create, filling in the gaps where structures, and then in these corners create nodes. As long as along the Second Ave. Okay, so here we go into a single, and there's 3 of these or 4 of these?
There are 2 of these. Now, we run into several fascinating design challenges with the lots. These are technically MUNE designation. We are required to have I believe it's 8 feet on either side of the lot has to be available, split between the 2 sides, so 4 feet, 4 feet. You can do 3 feet and 5 feet, but you have to have that space. And these lots are right at the limit of what is allowed by zoning in terms of the small width. Now, we've very much wanted to, these are the 4A2, provide an accessible unit which would be able to have, I believe the 4A is the 4-bed.
Yeah, so these are actually 4-bed, single-family homes.
Yeah.
So these are the only ones that are single-family homes. And there's 2 versions. One is steep, like this one, and another one is at grade.
Yes.
And the one that is at grade allows us to provide an accessible unit for basically single. I mean, it's kind of pretty lucky to then be, for these are 2-story units. So obviously, in context, all the buildings there are attached for the most part, but we then came, we have an empty lot, we have to be able to get those narrow locations, and even though this is a perfect location, or the width of these alleyways allows garbage to just be put on the side of their single-family home, so.
How wide is the building?
It's not very wide. So this was very challenging because we have to be able to get washer, dryer, cold storage.
Again, our
closets.
objective,
13 feet, 1.5 inches. Wow.
yeah, and our objective is to provide a place where we ourselves would want to live in, like a place of dignity for people. And there are a lot of, challenging design considerations, but we've always moved towards that, and I feel as though we've managed to achieve it with this.
Yeah.
Having spent nearly 2 years working at it.
And there was.
Both of you live in this?
What I mean, I got 3 kids, so I mean, yeah, 4 bedrooms. Is it 4
During-
bedrooms? Is
it is 4
bedrooms?
bedrooms.
Yeah, sure, put them on the top.
Depends on the stage in my life, but there have been many stages of my life where this would have been wonderful.
And, obviously, I think here what we wanted to do is keep it sort of the same. There was an option at one point to make this like a camelback, but right now let's just keep everything, similar to what's within the context of all the buildings there. So in New Orleans, that would have been okay, but.
Let's see the floor plan on that, is that close by? Only
yeah,
if it's close by.
this is 38, right? Yeah.
So is it 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom at the top? And 1
yeah.
bedroom at the bottom?
And the reason we had to do that was because there has to be an accessible bedroom on the first floor. But there's also a lot of utilities, like say kitchen, living, all these other spaces that need to be worked into that space. And we also have to have a fully accessible bathroom on the first floor. So it's,
What am I missing? What about the stair?
That's because of the grade.
Yeah.
No, there's 2. There's one that's at grade and then one that's.
Oh, so the
it's a separate
accessible bathroom
COA.
is not,
No, the accessible unit
the accessible
is.
unit is fully at grade.
is the other
Is
version.
the other
Yes.
version, yeah. So they're pretty narrow, I think, with those kitchens. Yeah, this is one of those where,
Yeah.
it's very,
Wow,
so,
it's interesting.
We're really working.
so I went to school in New Orleans where like the shotgun row
Yeah.
houses,
Yeah.
even in like the Upper East Side, you see those in New York City.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law lives in some of those, but obviously here we can do that, so. 'Cause those are nice because you just basically get rooms the way, because here we need stairs. So it's very,
And then we also need to, each CR has extra guidelines for rooms and spaces well beyond the code. So we've also made sure that we've been able to meet those and are providing these spaces.
If you had a basement, you could put a bowling alley in the bottom.
just 2 lanes.
Watch the stairs.
Yeah, so this one it's a very challenging one, and one thing we will do as we move forward with these projects is, the state will look at them, review them, so then, obviously there's, in terms of exterior, stays the same, but we modify them and make sure that we get, that the state does quite a bit of a good job of sort of processing all of this. There's a lot of guidelines that we have to follow, minimum size for bedrooms, minimum size for bulk storage.
But it's gonna be freestanding with 8 open feet on each side.
No,
Oh, sorry,
4.
4.
8 total.
That 8 controls, but the next door neighbor has,
No, in this, because it's.
the alley's
infill-
gonna be a 4-foot alley?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
because the adjacent neighbors are pre-existing to the lot line.
Right, okay. But functionally, it's a 4-foot alley.
Yes.
Okay.
So these alleys, if we had 4 feet in the other, it would be a lot easier to get stuff in and out. So.
Any side windows on it?
There are, because we have.
Great.
It's the only way to get some type of light.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's super dark. Otherwise you have to do skylights on the second floor.
I'm good. We're ready. Let's keep moving.
So 44 seconds.
It's the same thing.
Same.
So
So that whole stamp treatment or the treatment of the,
could happen there.
everywhere,
Yeah,
where
we
there
have those high situations.
Absolutely.
So I think there were.
Now which side of the street?
Here's 47, I think 49, 50.
So these are two A.
Yeah, these are the, yes,
So this is our orange one here. This is,
with a slight slope towards the back, so we don't have the issue of having to raise these.
On the north side.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is similar to what we've seen earlier. And has, so we try to keep them like away from each other, so that, well, there are some situations where we are going to have to, because there are some that are close to each other, just give it a different color, but it's the same idea, just like a different.
I like it. Personally.
He saw the orange.
Yeah, right.
Sucked into the wall.
Yeah, so these are very similar here, so here's where we're gonna, and just looking at these adjacent to each other, we'll add some variety in shades. So that, but it's basically the same unit type. These are one beds, 2 stories, kind of simple buildings.
Now, board and batten is not common on Second Avenue. Right now, there's none. And you want to be careful not to make it, oh, that's one of the board and batten, that's the one that belongs to. So you may want to take one of them, 2 of them, whatever, you may want to put in some horizontal normal
And I think
clapboard in
it's
there.
another way to kind of change the.
So it
colors.
doesn't become a uniform.
Just put it out there, does anybody need bathroom or a water break?
Yeah.
We take,
Yeah.
we'll
Are we
take a,
halfway?
we'll take a recess, we're
Yeah.
probably about halfway, but
We're
it's,
approaching COA 16.
Well, some of them go.
yeah, so
We're
we'll
running out
take,
of unique instances, if that makes sense. We're running out of unique, so.
Yeah, that's just-
It's going to be an increasing.
There are some that are.
Yeah, those are the state ones.
Last one.
PRs are-
Was I here? I don't think I was
I don't think
here.
you were here for, were you not here in July when we did the concept? I don't think you were, no,
I wasn't.
you weren't here,
I don't believe, yeah. I
yeah.
was here for that one, right?
You were, I think, were watching online,
Oh, okay, you know what, that.
cause there was like a huge
Oh.
group of you online,
I was in Florida.
yeah.
So what time did it end?
That one was a long one. Well, was it long or was this the only one that was on the agenda?
Was that the one with the cameras? Because I heard that there was one that they had gone to where there was a news crew in here.
No, that was not us. That was the planning board meeting that Andy and Eduardo attended.
Well, these doors aren't locked, right? Eduardo sometimes wanders, so I just wanna make sure.
These aren't, as long as he doesn't go outside,
Okay.
yeah, he'll be okay.
Sorry, I don't mean wander, but I mean.
there, and it was like. He said I should have gone to Vermont.
Alright, so we are
I
on,
want to say something about the board and batten that's not really board and batten. It's been troubling me through the evening, the board and batten, and I have to say, it makes me think of T111.
Yep. Yeah.
Plywood.
So,
And, but it's more contemporary treatment, so I'm kind of giving it room, but Jack, I was glad to hear you kind of speak to it.
and we did talk about it previously with the T111, is, more like just like a scene.
I
This one
know.
will have the actual.
But we don't have this, we don't have this.
We don't know what it looks like. We have an image, but I'm not sure what the finished product is gonna be.
I mean, we don't have it in Albany,
Yeah, we don't have it around
unless
here.
somebody put it over the earlier siding in a bad application.
Would it, and what's more typical, is it just the horizontal?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wood clapboard, or that cement,
Well, now the hardy board.
Yeah, the hardy
The
board.
fiber cement?
If you have any photos, kind of the
Yes,
stuff
that'd be
you've done
interesting.
that have this, that'd be nice to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up.
and clapboard of different exposures.
Yes. That's right.
So like the 6 to 8.
The Dutch used to like it wide.
Or,
New England all wanted it narrow.
Okay, but something good to know, and we can.
A lot of side walls have very high clapboard exposure, like 8 inches. I've seen a few.
Not considered elegant, but a lot cheaper.
And it's on the sides of buildings.
Yeah, only on the sides.
you know, it's interesting, having worked in Western New York and lived in Syracuse, Albany's like the last Eastern city. I've always thought that Syracuse was like the first Midwestern city. And so the aesthetic's really different. Interesting.
You're more the
It's
well
kind of
houses and
like-
brown stuff. 'Cause you see
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
I want to go back to Syracuse. Just to visit, just to drive to. We both went to Syracuse University together.
We've learned, both being not native to Rochester, don't call Rochester a Midwestern city.
No, you wouldn't.
They're very much a East Coast city.
Well, although there's a lot of more, like Buffalo, a lot more like relationship with like Pittsburgh and Cleveland, and Rochester's kind of like, that edge, so. Anyway, we should continue, otherwise it'll be midnight and we'll be at, number 20. Okay, so this one here is, zoom into the bottom right, and this is one where you could bring up that original, the street view version that we had there, and the reasoning for that. And that was more because in this case here, up until like the wings, so the wings on the edges of so what we did here is we do use a fiber cement panel, but it's almost more like a stone kind of look to it, and it was a way to kind of mimic a more more representative of a more sturdier material that you would see on a more commercial front, and at the bottom base is sort of like a stone kind of color look, and the upper one is also more, the idea was to create that with the fiber cement, since we can't go with stone, and then at the bottom keep the
This is on South Pearl.
on South Pearl.
It'll be fine.
The ends, at both ends, that's clapboard?
Yeah, that's fiber cement, but they're further back.
Way set back, that's the alley.
Yeah.
Way back 10 feet or more.
Okay. That's a funny application you wouldn't see clapboard on a monumental building. It's kind of monumental in the scale of what we have
Yeah,
here.
and it was more just because as we go further back, it's just not part of the primary sort of facade, so.
Where's this at?
right there, so
South
it's right
Pearl.
on South Pearl, so those are the two buildings is between, so if you zoom in there a little bit. The idea was like, especially with the one on the left and the one on the right, to try to keep that horizontal band that's on the bottom. So that's, and this is where we're going with one of the ones.
Did you happen to notice south of here, a little further south, some new construction?
Yes.
Who was with us? This is a while, we approved some stuff further down, HRC.
Yeah, that was it Scott Townsend?
See, yeah, 3T Architects.
Yeah.
We went through a whole lot of back and forth. Norman was active.
Norman and I went to their offices, went over a lot of it.
I think here you're trying to mimic the commercial nature of the street. And you're throwing it off because it has the two kitchen windows in the middle. If they had had a panel that was the same dimension as the big windows, and the panel would be hiding whatever sinks or utilities you had underneath.
Oh, I see.
When you looked at it quickly, it would look like the building on the left and the building on the right with the storefront on the bottom. I'm not sure you could do it. I see with those large panels that are going in there for glazing, maybe it could.
That actually can be done with the, but it unfortunately would be more like a storefront, where the bottom half is,
Yeah.
and I think the only thing here I will point out is that those windows are operable, so that's what we wanted to keep sort of in the kitchen, be able to have operable windows.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do anything to get rid of
It's
them.
more of
I'm
a,
just,
kind of a coloration on a balance thing.
yeah.
But we
Have
could
that
do,
I'm
fixed
just
panel
wondering if-
below.
yeah, we could do a panel below that,
Yeah.
kind of gives it the same sort of frame.
Yeah, and then it would go with its next door neighbors.
Okay.
It was a beautiful red brick building.
There.
That had
The,
been vacant for many years.
Is there vents
Except they used to be right where that building is. The
that are
new
gonna show up on
building is
these
now.
front elevations that we're looking at?
Oh, really? Was that Rommel's?
We will,
Or you say
especially with this one
was it
here,
German
get them on the sides.
funeral director.
As
How
much as
about
we
the
can.
other
I don't think- I
elevations
can't
we've
remember if it
seen?
was commercial or residential.
So
Oh,
with the ones, especially the row houses, we're venting to the back.
Oh, good.
That's the goal.
So the fence.
Yeah, the vents to the back, yeah, because it being an historic district, we're trying to get them
That's
to the
great.
back or to the sides.
That's great.
Obviously, I have to look at the mechanical drawings, we do have them, but we have emphasized venting to the back.
Great.
Back it up, right, on the top floors, you can vent up, and on the bottom floors, you vent back.
That's great.
Otherwise, we'd have all the
Yeah.
vents.
You could even do the same thing with the odd window that's a different size on the
On the
ground
bottom
floor.
Okay, yeah.
Panel it in some way.
Sort of frame it similar to
Yeah,
the other
frame.
sizes. Okay.
It's almost like a,
Why does that, if you could blow up there, why do, I'm sorry, I thought we were talking on the second and third floor first. Why do those first floor windows, the two left ones, have little transoms above?
So, because we have taller storefronts here, because they're commercial.
Yeah.
So, the windows themselves need additional, so you probably did not see them, but they're also on the other buildings to give it the height, because on these buildings, the ground floor, because it's commercial, is 10 feet, floor to floor there, so the ceilings are a lot higher.
So why not just have a taller window or
Cost.
a taller upper sash? That'll be a lot of framing.
I think the frame opening is the same, it's a unit that comes with the transom.
it's residential at that point, isn't it, on the left side?
Yeah.
So what's in the oddball one?
Kitchen.
That's a kitchen.
Yeah.
And yet the two kitchens above it are different.
all of
Different
them.
floor to floor height.
Yeah,
Just the
yeah.
floor to floor.
They must have more room or something like that.
It's about a foot, I think in this one, it might be 10-foot ceilings down at the ground floor, so that those windows are much, much bigger, because of the amount of glazing we needed for the commercial portion of the buildings.
Next one?
Moving forward.
Great.
Okay, Tunis, so is this a corner one?
Yes, there's, two corners on Tunis, I believe, on either side of the street.
So this is very similar to the ones that we've seen before. This one just has a yellow door, but it's. And the idea is basically the same, these are 1/1s. This one's at grade, and this one's clapboard siding. The exposure we're showing right now is about 6 inches, so it's not super big, but it's between the 6 and 8 and it's a 3-story building, therefore it has that
Staircase.
staircase.
Nice.
Rolling.
Keep rolling. Got it.
So this I think is a corner lot, double, is it the double houses?
Yes,
So, yeah,
this is where we're moving it to the end of the,
oh, right, okay, so I believe so along 3rd Ave, 36th 3rd is gonna be more to the left, because it has a bit of a
Great.
gap in between the
Yeah,
right
so-
of way and
a corner lot, yeah.
so this is sort of the gray version of that little one that we saw. And what we did try here, this is the one that did have the orange bottom. So it became very distracting. So we kept the panels for this one, but obviously, you know, you can let us know.
I don't think they help.
You know, I think they help. And again,
We don't have anything like that in the neighborhood.
No.
and then so we can just
Yeah.
remove those and then
Yeah.
simplify it.
Yeah.
And then it just looks like the other ones.
Also, it looks more commercial where the rest looks residential. And
It's interesting also looking at them this far back, seeing them, because I don't usually see them.
Yeah.
We should do that as well. It's just- We would have to do that at studio in architecture school. They'd make us stand back.
You can just make it tiny on your screen.
Anything else? Feel good?
There's, 3, this might be the one, the triangle.
All the way
one.
to the right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Triangle. Yeah, so this is basically the same building as the one we had previously. This one is one where we did 6/1, as some variety, but, yeah, we can sprinkle those here and there.
the same thing, you might want to look around and find out where you might want to get some traditional clapboard instead of.
Yeah, and we'll look at those, we'll look at all the wooden battens and maybe just minimize those.
Rolling.
So this is one where we have that two buildings that are it looks like a bigger building once you combine them like that. It's interesting. Yeah, we could differentiate them.
By color and,
Yeah, just like to make it look like two separate buildings, yeah.
Exactly.
And that's not too difficult. We have we have sort of the facades that we can.
You can also try to create some, a stronger vertical break between the buildings, like a deep recess. Not deep, but
Like a shadow line or something.
I'm talking maybe 6, 7 inches.
I don't think we can go back.
I don't think they can do
Yeah,
that.
we can do that.
Yeah,
They
That's
can do
right.
it with trim, they can do it with trim elements.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Otherwise we'll get in trouble.
Well,
Well,
the shadow was
We'll just
still.
say Lee told us it was okay.
Well, you might want to frame one with a vertical element to the left and the right to give it a separate identity. It would also provide the problem trying to select the two. So if you got a strip of a compatible color, but, you know, a little bit different, if one on the far left and one on the far right, it would work out.
Yeah, we'll look at this one to see if, you know, maybe providing we'll look at it, because they are on the same level. This is one where it's flat, so they're just gonna be right there, and it kind of looks, you know, sometimes when they stagger, at least they differentiate, but here. You know, because even like the one in the back, there is a bit of a trim, and also there's a gutter line, so you can see that there's a bit of a break between the two buildings, but we'll look at something on this side.
Okay, roll.
Going.
I think this is a long one here.
It is, it's the 6.
It says everything we've talked about.
Yeah, so, and then, so that short one, that one with the 2, this one has a little bit of a, it's raised a bit, so it, you know, kind of see the difference between the one and.
Yeah.
Well, this is actually one where we did not trim the other side, although I think, yeah. So, again, because of that condition where they're at the ends,
Yeah,
they have to stretch out to the left and right.
that's the one where
It looks like it's sinking.
Yes, the one on the right.
it's familiar to us as the same.
And I think another thing that we are, that you don't really see, that there would be sort of a break between the siding and the foundation wall there, so there would be, it won't look like it's getting eaten alive, so.
Boy, there's no way you can raise it down with some color or anything. That's tough.
The ones on the right? the one
Yeah.
on the right.
Well, the big one on the little one on the right has that sunken look, and I wonder, and you can't put any kind of a course, you know, implying that it's a drip course or something. But you could put panels under the 2 bottom ones, sort of like French windows, and that might break it up. See if the color elongated the two buildings.
You're talking about the short, the 2-story?
Yeah, the shortest one on the right, yeah.
Oh, and sorry, the reference about the French windows is,
Yeah, that's the idea, well, like French windows, sometimes they're fake and they'll have a modesty panel on the bottom, but the frame goes all the way to the floor level.
okay.
And if
Oh,
you-
I see, almost like a Juliet balcony type of thing?
Yes, yeah. But if you had,
I think
What
that building, and just quickly interrupt this, I think in our model, it might have sunk a little bit, and we can raise that to put it 2 grade, because it looks like the door is so,
Yeah.
so it needs to.
yes,
Because it should sort of match what's going on.
Yeah,
on the left.
it is,
Yeah.
It definitely
it is,
is a little bit.
it went down a bit, so we can raise
It
that.
snowed in front of the base course.
So this is the small line.
you see, you put a horizontal element in the one on the left. Works out nicely. You don't have anything like that on the one on the
So it's
right.
because it is literally sunken in our model.
Maybe go back and see
We'll
what
raise
it
it, we'll raise
Just
it.
lift it up.
Okay. Well, that would solve the
It's like
problem.
8 inches up, and then it'll have that. trim.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't need that as a door short.
Okay,
So yeah, this is getting into the new set,
New set, yeah.
217.
Okay, 27. So the individual one. Yeah, so this is very similar to what we saw there on Broad.
Yeah.
Less of a slope.
This is an infill between other houses, right?
Yes, I believe so. It is an infill between other houses. fine.
That's the best line, I'm sorry about my stomach making this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, luckily we got a sandwich before we came here.
So here we've got a medium-high stair with that opportunity for some sort of a treatment on the face of the outboard part of the stair. And then we've got a pretty high foundation wall as well. I can't remember if we've spoken today about, is that a poured wall there?
No, so, well, behind it there is.
At the building wall.
At the building wall, so, but it is gonna be, poured in place concrete, but then in the front, there's gonna be insulation, rigid insulation with this, it's called wall guard.
Yeah.
Which has like these panels which will
That's
have
what you
these
said.
sort of like, score lines, so it doesn't look just flat, plain and.
Okay. That'll be great. I mean, we'll put that on our list of details to kind of, when we get to final colors and maybe some of the treatment of the wall guard would be great to see.
Yeah,
Some of the
have
details.
some sample materials
Yeah.
in hand to look at.
We can start, trying to get physical samples so that we can. And
No, that'd be
photographs as
handy.
well. Yeah, so again, this is another one.
Same, different street, level, and being completely level.
I think here it does have a trim piece at the bottom, but it's
Yep.
the same color as the,
I thought Stevens Street was on the hill.
so we're on the top side and then.
Oh, okay.
That's the one.
I think the other side, we do have some other Stevens Street ones. And you'll see that.
Oh, yeah.
You'll see the, that's where the stoop treatment can get real creative.
Yes.
A little darker color on
On the trim.
yeah, on the top.
On the
Corners.
corner.
What about, they've got a different colors at pretty much the second floor level. I don't know if we zoomed in and seen that before.
Different color siding?
You have color 4, and then you have color 3 at the.
Oh, that's the trim, that's not good. They should be the same.
They should be the same.
They should be the same,
Yeah.
and what looks like,
There's like a horizontal trim there, but it doesn't even, I don't even think that we need that horizontal trim there.
at the floor level,
Yeah.
I don't
not
think so
there.
either,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
The difference was white versus light gray.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
that's a holdover from something else, and
It must
Yeah,
be
we
the
don't
same.
need that. Okay.
that, we have thin ones at 3 stories, but not at.
Okay.
We don't need that. So which one was that one? 20 Steven?
This is
Yeah.
1171, 20 Steven.
Okay. Yeah, 20 Steven, remove horizontal band. Thank God. And this is an example of the 1/1 windows. Yeah, that horizontal band is a holdover for something. It's the first time I've seen that.
It may be a rendering issue. Yeah. You can see that there's one under the window on the back side.
Mm-hmm, I see that one too, yeah.
That is not by design, that would be a printer error.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something's going on there. Okay, we'll fix that.
Aaron, it is, yeah, it looks fine actually in their side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might just be a
Just the PowerPoint.
This is on a hill set.
Okay, so this might be one that's very steep, very, very steep. Oh, no,
This one's good because it's on the other side of the street where, this is like right before you really start getting into the intersection.
Yes, it is.
yeah, Tunis, so we're okay. It's the other Stevens Street that's gonna be pretty intense. So yeah, this is,
I think it's on the bottom.
because we broke the COAs here logically. But yeah, here is an opportunity where we do have some ADA units, very similar to the stuff that we've talked previously.
Entire block, there's no step anywhere. They're all on ground level.
Yeah, and our lines are shown a bit more, can't think anymore, for clarity, just kind of shown, but the idea there with civil is that it would be aligned with the pieces.
Looks like there should be some snow in that scene. It's like a snowy scene.
It's the white screen, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Little image in the
that
back
probably is
makes
it.
me think of Snowflake.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
So this might be the big one here.
But this is still yeah.
So here is where Tunis does get very steep, so we have, and here is an example where we have tried lowering it as much as possible, we had it even higher, so, I think back to your point about the stamp concrete, you know, there's something we can do there, and talk to the team about, you know, with the contractor, what methods we can use, give it some texture.
Simple.
Yeah.
I think the bookend approach of the two really doesn't work. There should be another color somewhere there to break it up. See the matching color on the two bookends? Because they're essentially identical and mirror-like, but one would have a little more individual if it, and it might not be either one of those two colors.
I think, you know, one of the things that we initially, just to kind of give you a little peek behind the curtain, is you lay these out when you're doing this initially from a site plan perspective, you know, where things will fit. And you start looking at them from the elevation and you start saying, well, these two blocks here are very similar in size and depth. So you do end up getting situations where things make sense plan-wise because it works perfectly and then elevation, but there's always an opportunity to change it.
You want a divider of some sort?
Or on the foundation wall?
Yeah.
Yeah, there will be, because there's two separate buildings with two separate constructions.
Yeah.
So that I think that there's sort of an optical illusion.
And even the two in the middle, there
Yeah,
should be
there always will be something. Because there are firewalls that are separating all of these, so.
Yep. Okay.
And then this is another one.
This is the start of the 11 block that's working into the 5 and the 6. Okay. So this is the last of the deep.
I think this is one where we introduced that darker horizontal one.
Oh yeah, that would really help try to differentiate it because yeah.
Yeah, it's just after a while, just a lot of these. You cross your eyes.
Yep.
This should be the last one.
Is this the last one?
The last one?
The last
Yeah.
two.
The last Tunis one.
Is the last two this one?
This is
This
the
is it.
DPR.
This
is- we have-
we have made it to the end. This is it.
This is
our
the last
one.
one?
Do you think this might be helpful after this to show this whole streetscape because it's that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
Yeah, so this is basically the, where we have very steep slopes that we've been working extremely hard to work with our, just to give you some insight, in order to be able to drop them and sink them without bearing basically the buildings, as we raise the foundation walls as much as we can to try to get a bit of concrete in some areas where then you can, you know, and then working with civil to really work on those sites. So it's very, it's not just the architectural up and down, it's the civil, the structural, and everything that comes into play.
What we discovered is that it isn't the back of the property slope, it's the sides of the property. Because like, we're only required at max, we can be only 3.5 feet. So there can only be so much of a slope from the side properties down to meet essentially the first floor level. And as a result, we've fought with civil as hard as we can to get as much.
They're not watching it, okay.
To get it as far down as we
I
can.
hope not. Otherwise, hi, Andy.
I agree.
Just Bill.
He just had a baby, so I doubt that.
Either not awake or.
Yeah, but I think what we did do is we provided some overall kind of street view elevations that kind of give an idea of the buildings in relation to each other and the existing buildings.
That's important, man. That's real important.
So for example, the school that you were mentioning
Oh, but
earlier.
that's the old one. I did.
It is the old one, I think,
I did provide a new one, but you have
Am I
access?
the
I did
wrong
send the
one?
package,
Yeah.
I don't have access to it at least. So we can
Oh. wrong one, I apologize.
Yeah, these were the old ones, so we
I can, yeah.
might have been even a little higher.
No, it's interesting, the higher, the bigger plinths, the tall, with the buildings that are the most raised, there's a bit of an elegance around those.
Yes.
They're hard to,
Yeah.
they're harder to live with to carry your groceries in, than your everything else, your garbage out. But they're visually, it kind of reminds me of some of the buildings in the pastures
Yeah.
Yep.
for some
Because
reason.
they had basements,
They had-
they had to be elevated.
Yes, yeah, but there's,
That shows the line a bit more, but it just. Yeah. One thing we worked hard here too was that the property in the far bottom left is the one that's adjacent to the school that's being renovated. And we wanted to try to get closer to that height and continue something that's visually.
Same
Again,
on the
it's a
street.
cool context.
well, you put a lot of time in, it's really appreciated.
Thank you for saying that, because it's been.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
for getting through 100
Yeah,
and
and also.
112 at least pages.
Oh, yeah.
These, it's,
I can't wait to see it happen.
Well, we
It's going-
can't
it's
either,
going- It's going to happen.
We hope, yeah.
We really hope so.
The one on the right, where John had mentioned at one point with another window work or something, because it looks so wide. I think a wider framing around it would solve the problem. You see, it's a real skinny
Oh, like a
frame
trim,
on it.
like
Yeah,
a trim,
so
yeah,
it's
that one
yeah.
actually should, that one there actually should have it, and I've seen a couple of them there, they should have, maybe go with a 4-inch trim rather than like the 3-inch or 2.5
Yeah.
inch shown there.
that's probably a pretty typical recommendation then for all those
Yeah.
too wide and squat.
To
Structure.
increase the
Yeah.
trim size, yeah.
But that one's especially wide, so it calls for a wider trim around it.
If you think about this, we think about the mix of 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms, the accessibility, the center kind of community spaces that are being created. It's no, thank you for being up this late with us to continuously provide this feedback.
Well, I stayed up all night to work on, I was telling Marilyn to work on the project. So I'm extra tired.
Yeah.
That's why I'm yawning. It's not because of y'all, it's because of you. No, it's not boring. This is quite interesting.
So, we're done, right, with this?
I think so.
So, I guess do you have other purposes for this kind of renderings? Are they part of your final set? Or
Oh, like,
this kind of discussion of color and materials and changes, are you heading right to CDs, to construction?
well, we
drawings?
are kind of in CD, we're developing this, but obviously the elevations are fluid based on
Yeah.
our discussions with the next, so we can.
There's no plan change, I mean,
No,
There's no
what
plan changes
what we're
we've
gonna do is, gather all the notes, get in touch with Aaron, make sure we're all on the same page. So basically, I mean, ideally, it would be great to be able to, send something and you guys can review this and be like, yes, come and let's go up for a vote. And obviously, I understand that even when you see the drawings, when there's a hearing, there's always like, oh, okay, well, this is great on this condition here. If there's something still that we, so we understand that. But we would be working towards a package set of drawings and elevations that satisfy the comments and concerns that we've discussed today. And basically try to get it's a big process. We still got site plan review, we have all these things, but at least to get the HRC's approval saying, yes, we understand and know what's gonna be coming into this neighborhood and accept it, so.
Excuse my ignorance, do y'all have to like visit these sites prior to being able to render a final verdict? Like, or not verdict, but like a.
Not a requirement, no,
It
it's
isn't
not a
a
requirement.
And
We will go, we will individually go,
But I think it's one of those things where also it's like a big, you know the neighborhood, so it's like, so that's what we'll, and the next time what I'll do is just also include that, overall street view.
Yeah.
Things that you guys-
This would be helpful.
You know, that Second Street has some real significant
Yes, that was
architecture
agreed.
on it.
Yeah.
Take a look
It seems to me that there's probably about 6 or 8 or however many typical comments, right? You'll get to know.
Yeah, we've recorded these,
Yeah.
we will be able to, and then a lot of them also make sense once you start looking at it as a whole like this, because a lot of times we work on individual PRs trying to get these things out. So seeing this as a whole, we start to see where things kind of connect and where it makes sense. And like I said earlier at the beginning, you're gonna see some that make sense in those contexts, and then maybe pull that one out from there, put one in that makes more sense there.
So the samples, so there'll be some samples we'd like to see, right? Is
Yeah, I
that
think
conditional
wanna
and we see them in the future?
Physical samples of all the different sites.
Yeah, so what we
Of all the materials,
So what we can do is provide sort of the hardy board,
Yep.
examples and colors of the basis of design. I always say that this is the basis of design because a year from now, when it's under construction, that
They don't have that
business and that kind of doesn't exist, so but we'll always go with something that's of equal or similar.
I'd like to see this board and that
And
in a photograph in
Yeah.
an urban setting.
Yep.
You know.
Or a sample of it.
Yeah, I mean, we, cause typically the board and batten is, kit of parts, so they do the panels and then they put the boards, so we can, typically they're like 2 feet on center. So we can show you the batten and the board, but I think
I hear you.
what we can do is
Photographs, like-
do photographs. and
Yes.
I think for the some photographs of installations or buildings would be very helpful.
And we are working on, some rendering, so then we can hopefully present those as well.
Great.
I'm tired of y'all coming back here.
Me too.
I'd like to give y'all an approval as soon as possible.
I know, but I think
Probably at the next meeting.
Yeah, well, I think what's happening is we've gone from super high level concept, introduced it, made some changes because of the scope of work changed, the number of sites changed, everything had, the number of units changed. So then we started over, and we came back for concept.
Yeah.
And then last time we came with a little bit more detail, and then this is now our sort of
No,
refined.
don't take it the wrong way. This is a good project, but tired. I would be.
We appreciate
But
all the feedback and, and your.
And also your time.
and your
it's
dedication
a
to this.
process.
Yeah.
It's a process.
As
It's
a
a process that we're willing to help you through.
I
Because I
appreciate
think the project is a good project.
We, definitely very,
It'd be nice to see this volume of construction.
Yeah.
In the south end.
and
When
then we-
would it
Really
be
building it
possible,
back up again.
based
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
you've got 6 more months, you got plus minus 6 more months of reviews for the city?
Oh, no, I mean, I think hopefully for this project.
Yeah.
I,
That?
maybe even like less, I think, depending. I know that, Anna Feltham, who's one of our senior planners, had provided, I think, to Andy Burns, who's at Passero, an outline of kind of like our outstanding comments, so like what's been completed and what's been,
Yeah.
what still is
So-
needed.
So you're nearing the
So
end.
I think we're nearing the
Yeah, so
end.
And then how about at
Yeah.
HCR, where are you with?
Well, so once we, finish, sort of, a lot of times they need to see entitlements and being approved, so they can see those, and then with the funding, with the state, this is a 4% project, so there's certain sort of rolling, submissions. So once we get everything, a lot more clear on in terms of approvals and everything, they can submit to the state and then try to get all the funding that's required for that. So I mean, I can imagine Sure. I mean,
You don't know, yeah.
I'm working on 9% projects, there's a much more sort of defined deadline.
Very structured.
4% it's more as sort of as they come, so, you know, that's really a question for ownership, but, I mean, we're all trying to get this sort
Do
of.
you think it'll be in the ground in a year?
I mean, I hope so, I don't
You
know
don't
the
know,
full,
yeah.
but I would hope so, and the thing is, once construction does begin, it is a long process, so there will be construction going on for a couple of years in that neighborhood, so.
Yeah, multi-phase construction and things like that.
Say again?
Well, like things like multi-phase construction.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll phase it.
Yeah.
And I think Broad Street is sort of the idea
To start there?
yeah,
Yes.
it's the one that has the most,
Yeah.
right, so. But we're keeping our fingers crossed.
A lot of jobs too, that's great.
I think one thing we would like to see written into the documents ultimately is the protection of adjacent buildings when you're constructing near an existing structure.
So we've been, one of the reasons why we don't have basements is because of the underpinning required and the
Right.
potential
So
disturbance
you're
of the
also in
adjacent.
flood zone.
Yeah, and more reason to, you know, to like not, what we wanna do is try to get away, that's why wherever there's existing buildings, we're going the 3'5" max or whatever we can to get away from the adjacent buildings and also try not to go below them, so we're.
Right.
And we went through all the old tax maps tracing the history of adjacent properties over the last 100+ years to see like, okay, is there any reference of a basement? I believe also the ownership has attempted on multiple instances to like see if they could identify whether or not there are basements, but because they're all, the adjacent properties are owned by people or are people rented.
Different individuals.
It's been very difficult to confirm if there are existing basements, so as a result, can we really put a basement in ours when if we put a full basement, that becomes a structural question of the adjacent building versus.
You don't have one structure, one basement.
No, it's almost like upgrade.
And part of it was obviously the amount of digging that has to happen. And if you do have a basement and you have to dig 10 feet, you know, from, then you're digging another 10, you know, it's like it's.
But
and then-
something potentially you could run into that was unsuitable fill, where buildings were demolished and basements, formerly had basements, and they were filled in.
We run into that in a lot of different municipalities.
In which case, I think then underpinning could become an issue if you had to consider unsuitable material. Also, you would have the potential of a lot of vibration.
Yeah.
And most of these buildings are fragile buildings and they're not ductile, so they're not gonna respond well to vibration. So these are all requirements that need to be folded in for the
Yeah,
monitoring of adjacent structures.
We have discussed that with the sort of the team as a concern. It's something that obviously once construction begins, you don't know, you know, what you're gonna run into if there's like existing stuff down there until you start digging, but the team is aware of that. We have
The structural department is.
You got civil right inside.
We have civil, we have structural, so we're trying to mitigate things as much as possible to, you know, obviously make sure that we're not damaging adjacent structures, existing structures, because as you said, we don't know what state these are in, and a lot of them are probably crumbling. You know, I mean, we've seen some buildings just, you know, you walk around and you're like, that doesn't look good. You know? And it's not even our site, it's just like, you know, it's just because they used to be attached to another building.
Yeah, we've had some collapses, of course.
Yeah. So obviously.
This neighborhood doesn't have the endless rows that we have over in Arbor Hill, and Clinton Avenue, and it's just rows, all at the same time. And in that section of town, a lot of them was cheaper wood. It was more individually owned, and so it's rare that you'll find a row of 4 buildings even that were torn down, that were built all at the same time by the same developer. It's a different history of what created that neighborhood, which wasn't even a part of the city when it was first begun.
Sanborn maps are fascinating to look at for that purpose.
Yep.
Were there any archaeological concerns, Jennifer?
I think they've all been addressed.
Yeah.
So I think, initially when this project had come through, I believe that there were 8 sites maybe that have been identified for
There weren't many.
1Bs, and then I think
Yeah, we've gone through a lot, we've
11.
gone through SHPO.
Yeah.
A few
and,
more were added.
Yeah.
But we really appreciate all of your time and help.
Thank you.
You're done too.
Oh.
Okay.
You get through the ringer
I'm
on
about to
this.
fall over.
Yeah.
God bless you.
It was a lot.
If I remember 6, and then went up to 8, and then 2 needed the extra.
Right.
Yeah,
there were only a
I'm
couple that
trying
needed
now to
60.
keep it straight between this project and the Clinton Avenue project.
Yeah.
Because I think we got the reports at about the same time, and both of them had like initial sites and then the additional sites. But I think this one, yeah, was like 11.
I'm sure that they already put some of those.
Yeah.
There's.
But it had all been
Is that the one
addressed.
with home leasing?
Hmm?
Is that the one with home leasing, the Clinton Ave?
Yes, yeah. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, second. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I didn't know we had to do that. I'm on the zoning board in Manchester, so